so much to discuss, obviously. So I'm gonna get right into it. So let's blast off and let's do it. Let's do it. Where was I? What was I gonna say? Wait, can smaller people lift more relative to their body? Relative to their body weight. It's just copium, I think. It's just copium. All right. Trump hits the panican button and reverses tariffs for some. Is Tim Pool dick riding Israel? We'll talk about that as well. Obviously, that's a fucking fantastic story that everyone is like ripping into Tim. Old Timmy boy, old Timmy two-time, okay? Old Timmy two-time. He found a new country that he can dick ride. Maybe for some financial gain. You know what I mean? Old Timmy cuck. Trump is getting cucked. Timmy's getting cucked. Everyone's getting cucked out here. What's happening to the America First movement, man? Parkland Grendo, stop donating money. I can't see the thing that you're sending me. Just write it in the chat. There's no reason for you to pay to write a tiny thing on the corner of the stream. I can't see it, and it goes by too fast. Okay. Market madness continues. On later to explain away what's happening. Israel's PR is in the pooper. Why is Tim Pool dick riding Israel? Get in now. When are we getting gaming on the stream again? Schedule 1 looks awesome. I don't know. Israel first immigration policy. Wait, what? Israel first immigration policy. Oh, I saw that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. For anti all right, there's a lot going on. Chat, I spent all my money buying the dip on gaming stocks. Yeah, good luck. Bros Politics locked 7 days a week again. Shaking my head. Okay, listen to me, all right? There's a lot going on in the world, and if I don't talk about this shit, then the market is going to be flooded by doo-doo head motherfuckers who don't know what the hell they're talking about. Is that what you want? You want people who are oblivious to reality? You want people who are just not knowledgeable to be talking about this shit because they're talking about it? You need someone to make sense of the senseless. I'm out here for you. I don't want to talk about politics all day, every day. I don't. I mean, I love politics, but like, I get politicked out. I get politicked out all the goddamn time. Okay? You need to understand something. I want to go back to a more balanced schedule. I want to go and do fun stuff. I want to go and play video games with friends. You know what I mean? I want to do all that, but there's just like too much happening. All right. Anyway, breaking news. Donald Trump has announced a 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs, increasing the tariffs on China to 125% in the escalating trade war. We're going to get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, we're blasting off, by the way. Here it is. Here's the blast off meme. Here's the blast off tweet. Get into it. Pump it. Pump these stocks like you're pumping the stonks after Donald Trump gave a moment of clarity and a moment of breathing room to the global markets for a second. Paula ticked off. Yeah, I am. You call it politics. I call it politricks. Dale. ICE director envisions Amazon like mass deportation system Prime, but with human beings. Ugh, gross. Paula dick down. Yeah, that's right. I want/need to hear it, but yelling gives me a headache. YouTube recommended me Kai Puppy videos, and it was a great way to start the day. Yeah, I mean, it's a great way for me to start the day as well by hanging out with my lovely little lady and playing with her. And that's the reason why I can stay a little bit more sane. Oh, okay. Lower the volume. Yeah, exactly. Chatter, lower your goddamn volume. Okay, lower the goddamn volume. All right. Let's do it. Let's get into it. Have you seen the U.S. Treasury bond yield going straight up? The CCP starting an offloading process. Inflation going to skyrocket if this continues. Yes, we're going to talk about all that boring shit. That's actually quite important because last night I changed some of my attitude. And Donald Trump backing away from the tariff strategy that he posted also only reconfirmed the suspicion that I had. There is a method to this madness. A couple days ago, I showed you Trump's chief advisor, one of the most consequential, one of the most influential people in the administration, and his 5-point bullet plan that he had posted. Okay, if you recall. And I said to you back then, this is the real thing. This is what they're trying to do. Don't listen to any of the other noise. What was his name? I'm forgetting now. I keep forgetting his name, but it's not Besant. It's not Lutnick. It's not Navarro. There is another guy. Okay. You're signing Stephen Moran. That is the name of the dude. Thank you, chatter. Stephen Moran. Stephen Moran. That is who we are talking about. Okay. Hold on. Stephen Moran came out with a 5-point plan. Okay. Now, that's I told you this. The CE chairman, Stephen Moran, had a 5-point plan, and he gave his remarks at the Hudson Institute. I think he wrote a paper a couple years prior to this. A couple years prior to this. So you've come around to the Giannis view. Yes, to a certain degree. To a certain degree. Okay. Giannis Varoufakis, out of all of the analysts out there, of all of the economists out there, was probably one of the only ones that identified that there was a secondary purpose for the deficit war that Donald Trump wanted to engage in, and he was right. What he was right about was obviously devaluing U.S. currency. A lot of people did not recognize that that was what Donald Trump wanted to do. He was one of the only people out there that said, Donald Trump wants to devalue U.S. currency. The reason why Donald Trump wants to devalue U.S. currency is because when U.S. currency is too high as in comparison to other currencies, then you are going to have an import economy. You're not going to have an export economy. You're going to have a fat trade deficit, and slowly but surely over year, you're just not going to manufacture stuff here anymore, because even if you were manufacturing goods that other countries would want, it's far too costly for them to purchase those goods, because the reality of the matter is the dollar is way more powerful. The dollar is way more powerful than any other currency. Part of the way that countries do this is by, purchasing dollars. Okay. That is one of the ways that they engage in, I guess some might call it currency manipulation, but I don't think it is. But some of the other ways in which you do this is also by making your manufacturing, specifically your labor, as devalued as possible, as cheap as possible, so you become a exporter or you maintain your manufacturing capabilities. Germany has done this through the euro, and every other country has basically done a version of this. And that's what Donald Trump claims is cheating. Now, a lot of these concepts, I'm going to be switching and using some terminology fast and loose. A lot of these concepts that Donald Trump is claiming is happening, where he says is cheating, is not cheating. It's a system that we designed. We're the United States of America. This is literally what we designed. We wanted these other countries to actually serve us and in many circumstances basically rely on slave labor to be able to get cheap, accessible commodities, okay? Cheap, affordable commodities. We designed it this way. We built the entire global financial system this way, and we accelerated it after, removing the gold standard. This was, there were multiple market shocks in the process, but this is our thing. This is our thing. This is our grand design. And now Donald Trump is saying, I don't like this grand design. It's been cooking America's manufacturing capabilities. Now, of course, he doesn't care about the labor aspect of it. That's just a way to promote it to the working class, to be like, no, we're going to bring manufacturing jobs back here. It's going to be great. That is just the seasoning. The real thing that Donald Trump cares about, on the other hand, is manufacturing. Because manufacturing does not exist in the United States of America, and that we are over-reliant on China and also secondary markets that China has created, Donald Trump sees this, as well as Barack Obama did, as well as Joe Biden did, as well as every other American government leadership did, every other American administration did, as a massive national security concern. That's what the problem is. That's what they want to do. The trade surplus or the trade deficit issue is simply America's not manufacturing shit because American currency is too expensive. And also simultaneously, this is a major threat because if China were to fucking one day, we want to go to war with China, one day they just shut off the faucet of manufacturing, we're cooked. We're left out with our dicks out, pissing against the wind. So that's precisely the reason why America cares about moving manufacturing back to the United States. It's a matter of national security. It has nothing to do with fucking labor. It has nothing to do with good paying jobs. It has nothing to do with anything. Okay? And a part of that process means you have to get other countries by force to devalue the US dollar against their currency. You have to make their currency purchasing power higher. Okay? That is part of what Yanis Varoufakis was claiming, because you can't do that. If you don't do that, you can't get any manufacturing. You can't fix your trade fucking deficit, because these countries don't have money to purchase American-made products. So, on that aspect, there is a method to the madness. Okay? Hudson Bay Capital paper written by in November 2024, by the way. This is the method. This is the madness. Stephen Moran wrote about it in November 2024. A user's guide to restructuring the global trading system. This is the blueprint. Do not listen to Peter Navarro. Do not listen to fucking Howard Lutnick. Do not listen to Scott Bessent. Do not listen to any of these other guys. Don't listen to Donald Trump. This is the guy. This is the blueprint. This is the method. And they're following it to a T, okay? And don't listen to Ron Vera either. Ron Vera. Okay, maybe you can listen to Ron Vera. That's kind of funny. And I mentioned this before. I told you all about, like, this being the 5-point plan. And it seems like last night's efforts, last night's initiative, starting off with Chinese market moves that took place, is moving the United States in that direction, which means there's going to be massive instability, and America is going to become a poorer nation overall. America's purchasing power is going to lower overall in the interim. So I think Donald Trump is burning the candle from both ends and cooking the United States of America. And I will tell you exactly why. While the initiative and the 5-point plan that they've designed is insane, selfish, it's also short-sighted and will lead to economic turmoil. Okay? I don't think that Donald Trump is going to be able to get his desires across, and instead is going to fuck this up. Don't listen to them, but they're using what you're saying to listen to. Wait, what? No, I'm saying that if you listen to Howard Lutnick or Scott Bessent or Donald Trump, you are going to be confused, because the real thing that they are, the real guiding principle behind what they are trying to do, the actual moves that they're making right now, are written by this guy, Stephen Moran. Now, let's get started with the stock surge as Trump announces 90-day pause on some tariffs, and then I will get back to what I'm talking about as well, okay?
This is an ABC.
Also, 125% tariff on China is irrelevant, okay? Because once you hit like 30% tariffs or 40% tariffs on China, it's over, okay? You've already severed ties with China in terms of trade. The difference between 85% tariffs on China and 125% tariffs on China is nothing. It is negligible. The reason why it's negligible is because you've already maxed out on the tariffs. You've already severed ties. Ain't nobody is going, I desperately need this thing from China. I'm going to go and fucking get it. And now I'm going to have to pay extra. Like, it's just not a thing, okay? It's functionally a trade embargo. You know, you might as well say we're going to put 1,000,000% tariff on China. It's done. You are enforcing a trade embargo by way of tariffs.
ABC News special report.
Hi, I'm Diane Macedo. We're coming on the air because President Trump has announced a 90-day pause on tariffs against most nations while raising tariffs against China. The markets have jumped on the news right now. We're seeing the Dow up about 2,000 points. The president posted on social media saying, quote, based on the lack of respect that China has shown to the world markets, I'm hereby raising the tariff charge to China by the United States of America to 125% effective immediately. At some point, hopefully in the near future, China will realize that the days of ripping off the USA and other countries is no longer sustainable or acceptable. The president went on to say that based on the fact that more than 75 countries have reached out to the U.S. to negotiate, he is putting a 90-day pause on most other tariffs. I want to bring in our ABC senior political correspondent, Rachel Scott, at the White House, where we just heard from the press secretary and the Treasury Secretary, on this. Rachel, how are they saying this is going to work now?
It's pussy time.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, as well as the press secretary Caroline Leavitt, are speaking to reporters right now here at the White House.
That's right. That's right. He folded. He folded. Some might say, excellent 5D chess move, Mr. President. He folded. Coward. He said, panicking. I'm panicking. I'm a panicking alert. I'm a panicanian myself. I folded. I folded.
trying to explain how the administration is going forward on this. So just the headline here, the president was asked about whether or not he was going to do a 90-day pause just days ago by our own Mary Bruce. He said at this time it was not something that he is considering. Now the president is going forward with that 90-day pause. For most of our trading partners, it will be at 10%. For everyone else but China. China, the tariffs are now rising to 125%. The White House is insisting that 75 countries have come to the table, have reached out to this administration and the White House to continue these negotiations. It is very notable that China really not a part of those discussions right now. You see this tit for tat between the United States and China as this trade war between us and one of our largest trading partners is now escalating. But the bottom line here, Diane, the president is pulling back on some of those retaliatory tariffs that he initially announced just days ago, Diane.
And I want to bring in Whit Johnson, who spent the morning on the New York Stock Exchange. Whit, this is at least partially the news that so many investors were hoping to hear.
This is exactly what people were asking for. The one thing that's sort of missing in all of this is the clarity.
Dude, I'm done. I'm done with the media. I'm done with Donald Trump. I'm done with the dumbass Americans. I think we deserve this destruction, okay? Because Donald Trump did the same thing he always does. He broke something. Everybody went, "What are you doing? You are killing my children." And then he turned around and was like, "I'm not fixing it. I'm not fixing it." And then when push came to shove, he was like, "Okay, I won't break it any further. I'll break it only a little bit." And now everyone's like, "Brilliant chess move, Mr. President. What the fuck are we doing? What are we doing?" Oh, finally, a brief respite that everyone was demanding. Finally, the markets will breathe again. And it's like, dude, none of this had to happen. What the fuck are we talking about? This has literally been the exact same thing that Trump did his first administration. He did it in this first tenure. Term one, he did this exact same shit. Term two, he's doing the exact same thing. And he's done it over and over again in the past 3 months. Okay? It is so psychotic. I cannot comprehend how these people are so delusional. How they have deluded themselves. I make a stupid decision, something really bad happens. I convince my followers the problem is now magically solved. I reverse my decision. I make a stupid decision again. It's that. This is what's happening. Yeah, biggest one-day gain for NASDAQ since 10/13/2008. This is why I hate the stock market. It is fake. It's bullshit. It's not real. Money is not real. Don't tell me the stock market is real, okay? It is so fake. It's the most fake shit of all time. It is the most fake shit of all time, dude. Holy moly. That's why I kept stressing the importance that, like, your 401ks diminishing is consequential, certainly. But what is more important here is the potential for layoffs. It's an indicator of the economy getting worse because the stock market gains are privatized at the tippy top, but the losses are socialized. This is precisely the reason why when it's doing well, you're not necessarily doing great, okay? But when it's doing poorly, you will suffer. Yeah, this is the meme. I'm adding tariffs. This will create jobs. I'm removing tariffs. Art of the deal. I'm adding tariffs. This will create jobs. I'm removing tariffs. Art of the deal. I can't stand these people. I can't stand the stupidity of Trump supporters and Trump dick riders in the media that are constantly going, "Oh, the market's green again. It's just fucking stupid. Oh, we did it." Okay, yesterday you said the market was red, but it's inconsequential. Today it's green. Yesterday you said the tariffs are good. Today you're saying art of the deal, baby. Trump removed the tariffs. You have nothing. You're just responding to stimuli. You're like a fucking sea cucumber, dude. You have the processing power of a barely functional, barely living organism. You're like a vegetable. I don't know. I don't know how to have a conversation with fucking people like this. I don't know. So stupid. And by the way, the pain is not done. It's not over. The destabilization will continue. Also, this is a pause on the tariffs that were going in place today. There's like 10% on every country plus 125% on China. Like, companies are still getting fucked. Exactly. I'm gonna I'm gonna be talking about all of that in a second. I just think it's funny that the market rallies so easily to be like, oh, thank God he didn't fuck us over that hard. Oh my God. Oh, I thought he was gonna do it. It's like, okay. Oh, he's not doing it. Oh, thank God. Dummies.
And the specifics. Obviously, we have the 90-day pause. There's some time for investors to digest. But what's interesting with the 90-day is that's what basically people have been calling on the president to ask for. This morning, we heard from Bill Ackman, who's a billionaire, who's a longtime supporter of Donald Trump's, who came out publicly warning about the effects of these tariffs. He put out in a statement on X earlier in the day calling for specifically a 90-day pause. We also saw Jamie Dimon with JP Morgan, who had been talking about the increased likelihood of a recession. So we see all of these people who President Trump knows very well, who'd been calling for this pause. We saw the markets reacting, hanging on every.
Asman says he's brilliant and China needs to play ball. I'm going to Brian Kill Me. I'm sorry.
Single word from the president, but this gives them time to figure out what's going to happen next. Now, one thing that we did see this morning, which I think for people from the outside looking in, it was a little bit confusing. Why did, after the tariffs were announced overnight, why did the markets kind of go up and down, up and down? And it seemed as if from some of the traders that I was talking to, they were suggesting that some of the concern had sort of been baked in the previous 4 days where we saw those massive declines. I mean, up to $6 trillion, in the S&P alone. And so they were waiting. And that's why you're seeing it going up and down. Every little piece of news, every little hint from the administration about a negotiation, maybe some.
You should debate Asman. I would love to do that. He's the one who would never do that. Okay, I'm down to do it.
Optimism, people were jumping in or people were jumping out, but this was that thing that they had been waiting for. But one piece of caution here, based on what I'm being told, is that, look, it's not over yet. You still have this escalating trade war between the U.S. and China. That's going to have a massive ripple effect. And so what does that mean? We don't know, but still some at least temporary good news when it comes to investors.
And let's dig a little deeper into that ripple effect with our chief business correspondent, Rebecca Jarvis. Rebecca, 90-day pause on most of these tariffs on the one hand, increased tariffs 125% on China. What does that mean for consumers?
Well, first of all, it's a stunning reversal. Just a week ago, the President Trump dubbed it Liberation Day and rolled out.
Bro, it's crazy. I sent an email to Fontes Media about their buy shot and asked why you were so low on the accuracy scale. They replied in depth. Do you have an email I can send the reply to? They asked for the reply if I wanted to submit better quotes. Yeah, send it to Hassan@night.co. Hassan@night.co. Stocky said, you should have the stock guy on your stream. He said you have no idea what you're talking about when discussing the stock market. Wait, what is he saying about the is he pro-Trump? The fuck? No way. I don't think I am in disagreement with Stocky at all on this stuff. Him in his chat talk about you constantly. Wait, first of all, there's no way he likes Donald Trump. That's number one. Y'all are fucking delusional if you think that he likes Donald Trump. Number two, in terms of anybody trying to make anybody trying to come up with like what the reason is for why Trump is doing this kind of thing, it has nothing to do with market fundamentals. It has nothing to do with understanding micro or macroeconomics. It has nothing to do with finance whatsoever, because Donald Trump and his admin are not moving in that way, demonstrably so. Look at the fucking impact that it's had on the stock market. The reading the tea leaves is happening for every single person. And I would go so far as to say that I have a better assessment on what the fuck the Trump administration has been trying to do than most of the analysts that you've seen, because I cover a broad swath of different opinions here on this broadcast. So there's no one has the perfect answers, myself included. But in terms of like making sense of the senseless here with respect to what Donald Trump and his administration has done, I think that I have a pretty solid assessment. I think it's just simply a easy way to say like, oh, no one else knows what the fuck's going on here. Neither Asman nor Hassan know what the fuck they're talking about. And I'm the one who knows everything. I don't know. It's just a way to like, I think, present yourself as the most knowledgeable. And he is certainly more knowledgeable on the stock market than I am. I'm not knowledgeable at all on the stock market. I don't even have a fucking credit card. Okay, let's be real. I think that chatter just simply wants to do drama stuff. Yeah, but anybody that tells you exactly what's happening, and anybody that can tell you like that, and I don't even think that Stocky would say that regardless right now, especially because of the obvious instability and its impact, the impact that it's had on the stock market. Anybody that tells you they know what the fuck's gonna happen next is lying to you, okay? Why don't you have a credit card? I'm a madman.
All of these so-called reciprocal tariffs, and now there's a 90-day pause on the majority of them, except for on China. First of all, those sources I'm talking to on Wall Street have anticipated that a lot of this has been with the idea of isolating China. And you even heard from the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, who's speaking right now.
I don't have bad credit. I own a house, chat.
Early countries who have come and spoken to the United States, the likes of Vietnam, South Korea, India, Japan, countries that might have aligned themselves with China are going to be included in this 90-day pause. That said, China is still a very, very important trading partner with the United States. They export about $440 billion worth of goods here to the United States. A number of small businesses and big businesses rely on China, and it appears that things are continuing to escalate there with part of this directive, including that increased tariff on Chinese goods that are coming here to the United States. So when it comes to those items like clothes, shoes, toys, electronics, some furniture that are coming here from China, when we've been talking about these possible price increases if the tariffs are to stay in effect, that is still on the table. Those price increases are still on the table, and anything that's coming from China, whether it's already left.
By the way, Donald Trump did, I think, clear market manipulation. That's the other side of this as well, because he, one, opened up the tariff faucet, literally tanked the entire global stock, the entirety of global trade and the New York Stock Exchange. And then right before he unveiled that he was going to put a fucking pause on the tariffs, that is the reason why there was so much market volatility and the lack of consumer confidence led to people selling their shit. He said, buy, like, buy, buy, buy. It's time to buy. One of the most insane things I have ever seen. Goldman Sachs rescinds recession call after Trump tariff pause. It is, I mean, dude, the graft is in broad daylight. It's out in the open. Money is fake, and these guys are just making fun of you, I think. They're doing shitcoin stuff, dude. Do you know how crazy this sequence is? Yeah, look at this. Great time to buy DJT on Donald Trump's Truth Social at 9:37 a.m. Couple hours later, based on the lack of respect that China has shown to the world's markets, I am hereby raising the tariff charged to China by the United States of America to 125%, effective immediately. Okay? But that's not the point. At some point, hopefully in the near future, China will realize the days of ripping off the USA and other countries is no longer sustainable or acceptable. Conversely, and based on the fact that more than 75 countries have called representatives of the United States, including the Departments of Commerce, Treasury, and the USTR, to negotiate a solution to the subjects being discussed relative to trade barriers, tariffs, currency manipulation, and non-monetary tariffs, and that these countries have not, at my strong suggestion, retaliated in any way, shape, or form against the United States, I have authorized a 90-day pause and a substantially lowered reciprocal tariff during this period of 10%, also effective immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Boom! Stock market goes crazy. People are doing victory laps. They're like, I've never nutted this hard. Thank you, Mr. President. You gave us the brief respite we needed. Money is so fucking fake. I love fake money. That's basically what happened. I love how fake the money is. Make it more fake. Masterful gambit, sir. None of this makes any fucking sense. It does. It's just like, it makes sense if you just look at it as we have outward in broad daylight graft, and seemingly no interest in putting an end to it. Okay, we are at the mercy of a psychotic madman who has no interest in making changes happen in the least painful way possible. It's very clear. It is very clear that nobody cares about anything, and things are only going to get worse. Year's time, Republicans going to talk about how April 9th, 2025 was one of the greatest days in the stock market history because of Trump. Yes. Yeah, already Goldman Sachs has rescinded the recession call after Trump trade tariff pause. Okay? So countries that were going to get 105 tariff like Turkey, they don't have tariff. Wait, no. Countries are still getting tariffed. There is still going to be an extra entry fee. There's still going to be inflation. It's just not going to be potentially hyperinflation. Okay? That's it. That's the only thing that we are, I guess, avoiding, at least for the time being. There are still many issues, however. Truna says, great news. Resuming plans to close numerous manufacturing facilities in the Midwest and move all production to Vietnam and India. Me too. I am no longer working with union-made domestic manufacturing. Now that Donald Trump, the glorious president, revoked the tariffs, I'm going back to Vietnam, baby. I'm going to Vietnam, okay? So I don't think the recession, I don't know if the recession is called off or not. We'll talk about that in a second. But considering that the Chinese tariffs are still in place and he has increased them, which is negligible, it's inconsequential at this point because once he already maxed out on the tariffs, doesn't matter if he's doing 125%. You know what I mean? The difference between 104% and 125% is nothing. It's just there's no trade happening at that point. It is functionally a trade embargo that you have placed upon China. Now, of course, the interesting part about it is that China doesn't just directly manufacture things at this point. They also manufacture in Vietnam, in other countries. So, you know, it doesn't really, you know, there's still ways in which America will still get Chinese manufacturing. It'll just be at a higher cost from a secondary market. So we got that. But also, here's CoffeeZilla once again, slowly but surely losing his mind. Trump front ran his own announcement to pause tariffs by saying it's a great time to buy 3 hours before huge news for stocks hit. This is levels of insanity we've never seen before. I think it's really funny that slowly but surely, CoffeeZilla, over years of covering pure corruption within the cryptocurrency circles and recognizing that the exact same style of corruption, both for the cryptocurrency circles and for the regular stock market, is happening under the Trump administration. He's becoming like a radicalized Marxist-Leninist vanguardist, I think, by the end of this process. Every day that goes by, I see another tweet from him going, what the fuck is happening? How is this allowed? Amazing. Great time to buy. I'm going to do something freaky with the tariffs. If you believed his buy message and bought 100K of NVIDIA calls, you would have made 1.3 million. Yeah. Does this feel as Nixonian madman theory to you as it does to me? Really starting to feel like Trump team thinks this is the strategic direction? Maybe. Probably. Listen, we got more. We got more on this. I have so much to talk about. And these are some of the... This is barely the part that is this is negligible stuff. We got so much more to talk. Possible scenario. One stupid tweet spreads baseless rumor of 90-day tariff pause, causing number to go up. Wall Street learns tweet was fake news, so number go down. Trump seeing a 90-day pause made number go up, claims credit for idea, and announces a 90-day pause. This was, of course, 2 days ago by Tyler Austin Harper, and he was right. That is precisely what happened. Did Trump do this tariff pause on pause for his rich buddies to buy the dip? No. I will tell you what I mean by this, okay? I will tell you what I mean by this. Is there insider trading that he's doing? I guess it's not even insider trading at this point. It's outsider trading. Weirdly enough, it's insider trading, but also being done on the outside. There's no shadowy backroom deal at this point. I'm sure that also happens, but like it's very obvious that he's just like, yeah, no, we're doing this thing. Having said that, as I've told you before, this, like what just took place in terms of, rich people probably buying the dip, right? And making out a lot, making out gangbusters style in this process, like a nice little pump and dump. Okay. That is just what will happen regardless. Okay. That's not the actual intention. That's not the actual intention of Trump's madness here. But there is a method to the madness regardless, and I will describe it to you in a moment. Okay, I will get to that in a second. Let's finish this piece, and then I'll talk about what Donald Trump is trying to do and why it will still fail. Let's continue.
Ship in the water, they will still face at U.S. Customs those higher tariffs. And as we reported over and over again, generally speaking, what companies do is they pay that higher tariff. U.S. companies pay that higher tariff at the border as the goods come here and then pass it off to consumers.
All right, Rachel, Rebecca Witt, thank you. And we will continue to watch closely. The market's now up a little more than 2,000 on the Dow, and we will continue to monitor action at the White House on this as well. Our coverage continues on ABC News Live and abcnews.com. And David Muir will be back tonight with the entire team of...
Oh, yeah, here comes the press secretary and the...
There's something really funny. Are the tariffs over? For the time being, the universal tariffs are over. They're done, okay? Will they come back? Nobody knows. Most likely it will, because Trump is fucking crazy. But as far as the Chinese tariffs, they are still very much in play. They are not over, okay? It is far from over. It is far from over. Okay. They're not done. They're reduced to 10%. Exactly. So there will still be an increase in prices. There will still be an increase in prices. There will still be market volatility. The only reason why the markets are reacting to this in a positive way is because Donald Trump went in and said he was going to kill everyone and then turned around with a gun, with a loaded gun, started shooting people, and then stopped at like shooting 3 people and said, okay, everyone else is free. Yeah, before Donald Trump came into the room, you had a sense of safety. After he came into the room with a loaded gun and started killing people, you were like in a moment of panic. You were like, oh my God, he's going to kill everyone. He's insane. And now that he stopped killing, now that he stopped the killing at like 3 people, okay, and is threatening with the loaded gun to kill the rest of the Chinese people in the room, I guess, everyone's like, oh, thank God. Okay, we're free. At least we're free. Holy fuck. So now they feel much better. They feel much better overall than they did maybe while Donald Trump was killing people. But they don't necessarily feel better overall than when they did before Donald Trump entered the room with a loaded gun. Anyway, here's Donaldo in front of the White House with NASCAR racing champions. Just having a fun time, dude. Just having a fun go at it. Fuck it. Why not?
Thank you very much, everybody. We have a very special day for a lot of reasons, actually, if you really think about it.
Now, one of the funniest parts about all of this, of course, is that the Republicans that spent every fucking moment trying to tell you how good universal tariffs are in application are now turning back and saying, brilliant move, sir. Thank you for taking away these awful tariffs. You are the king. Okay? Every single one of these guys that kept repeating over and over again that like these tariffs are the best thing that has ever happened to American trade, American manufacturing, are now turning around and stating that actually, thank God Donald Trump removed those fucking tariffs. Here it is. Okay, let's look at this. Fox News tells the story of a small business owner who used to pay $26,000 in tariffs on goods imported from China, but now faces a $346,000 tariff due to Trump's 104% tariff on Chinese imports. Okay? Let's take a look at what this story looks like.
Exclusive story, and it talks about how with these 104% tariffs that went into effect.
This is still in effect, by the way. This is still going to cook a bunch of businesses.
You know, we think that...
Poor Sean Fain now has to change his stance again. No, you misunderstand what Sean Fain is saying in terms of trade protectionism. If you think that he is just simply responding to Donald Trump and trying to play and simply defending Donald Trump's decisions, that's not what's happening. The UAW's position on trade protectionism is built around is built around wanting to maintain domestic manufacturing. Ironically enough, I think it's also still short-sighted. No, I don't think this chatter means Sean O'Brien. He means Sean Fain, who is the union leader of the UAW. Now, Sean Fain and the UAW's communication on these tariffs has been overall positive, cautious but optimistic. Okay? Cautious but optimistic. Part of the reason why it's cautious but optimistic is because they're not for free trade. It's understandable. It's understandable that they would be anti-free trade. It's understandable that they would be pro-trade protectionism. I've talked about this already. The issue that I have with the ways in which Donald Trump has applied these broad tariffs is, of course, the reason why he did that is because, or the ways in which he did this insane thing was damaging to the global economy and damaging to even domestic manufacturing as well. It was damaging the domestic manufacturing because there's still a shit ton of parts that come from outside of the United States of America when you're manufacturing and assembling a vehicle in the United States of America. So obviously companies would start signaling layoffs in the process if these tariffs were implemented, because you can't do trade protectionism if you don't have the manufacturing hub that was built ahead of time. Okay?
China is going to have to pay for it, but it tells a story of a special needs toy importer. And when the tariffs went into effect at midnight, his tariff, he's been paying a tariff because he gets stuff from China, $26,000 a year. His tariff bill went from $26,000 at midnight to $300.
Wait, I don't get it. I thought that China would pay for it. Why is Fox News telling me that China will pay for the tariffs yesterday and then telling me today that actually it's an American small business owner that will pay for it? What's really funny about this, please stop spamming. What's your solution on Israel and Palestine? And what would you hope would happen? And how do you remove apartheid? Also explain Taiwan and China. Who do you support? Can you explain some economics and books that I should read and learn more? Why did you personally choose socialism? Chatter, I love that you're curious, okay? I love that you're curious, but holy fuck, please stop spamming. I'm not going to literally stop covering the most consequential issue right now, the most newsworthy issue right now, and just take a sidestep to just describe to you all of these fucking concepts, dude. Oh my God. That's crazy. Let's get back to Fox News.
$46,000. And that's money he's got to gonna have to come out of his pocket. It sounds like he's gonna have to go ahead and close down part of his business. He tried to make the toys in the United States, but the tariff on that, his most popular item, went from $0 to $17 at midnight. And what he told the New York Post is people don't understand the tariff situation. They think just foreign countries are paying for the tariffs. That's not true. Half of the tariffs are being paid for by U.S.-based companies. Yeah. So when you look at the big numbers and they look good, just remember that according to this guy, half of the small businesses and half of the tariffs are being paid by Americans.
Well, wait. That's only because that's only if Chinese manufacturers reduce their prices on their end and take on some of that cost. Anyway, Trump is responding to questions. Let's take a look.
$1 trillion off trade with the United States. That's not right. And now I've reversed it. It's for a short period of time, but we made $2 billion. We're making now $2 billion a day. And somebody had to do it. Roger actually said it. Charles Schwab was here a little while ago, one of the great financial people, and he said he's been waiting for 40 years for somebody to do what I did over the last month.
Wait, hold on. This has subtitles.
One of the great financial people, and he said he's been waiting for 40 years for somebody to do what I did over the last month. And if you didn't do it, you wouldn't have a country. It wouldn't be sustainable. So I'm honored to have done it. And look, nothing's over yet, but we have a tremendous amount of spirit from other countries, including China. China wants to make a deal. They just don't know how quite to go about it. It's one of those things they don't know how quite.
I promise they want to make a deal.
And
they
President
do.
Xi's a proud man. I know him very well, and they don't know quite how to go about it, but they'll figure it out. They're in the process of figuring it out, but they want to make a deal. And we have many other countries, as you know, many more than 75. And they all want to come, and they want to come here, or they'll go to Commerce, or they'll go to Treasury. We have our great senators here and congressmen. They'll call John, they'll do somebody, they'll go through somebody, but they're all calling, how do we do this? They all want to make a deal. Somebody had to do what we did, and I did a 90-day pause for the people that didn't retaliate, because I told them, if you retaliate, we're going to double it. And that's what I did with China.
You've never seen a fuck up like this, believe me.
We'll see how it all works out. I think it's going to work out amazing. I think that our country is going to be at the end of a year or shorter, but I think we're going to have something that nobody would have dreamt possible. A man like Roger Penske, I don't want to get him in trouble with China, so I won't, but he would know that you have to, someday you have to cut the bow and you have to do what you have to do, right, Roger? And that's what I did, and I'm very happy to have done it.
Was there anyone the Prime Minister of Greece just told Breitbart's Matt Boyle that he thinks absolutely the European Union and the United States could work out a trade deal that's win-win and, quote, mutually beneficial to both sides.
I agree.
What do you think about the Prime Minister's comments, and do you think a deal could be struck with the European Union?
First of all, I know him, he's a good man, and I appreciate his comments. Yeah, a deal could be made with every one of them. A deal's going to be made with China. A deal's going to be made with every one of them. And there'll be fair deals. I just want fair. They will be fair deals for everybody. But they weren't fair to the United States. They were sucking us dry, and you can't do that. You know, we have $36 trillion of debt for a reason. We don't have it there for fun. They have it for a reason. And people took advantage of our country, and they ripped us off for decades. I've been thinking about this for decades. If you ever saw me on television, I was young like these guys, and nothing changed, and nothing was done about it. Then I did it in my first term. I did it and did it well. We took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China and others, and I started the process. But then we had to fix up from the COVID mess caused by China. We had to fix up from that, and we did a good job of doing it. And when we handed back the reins after a rigged election, and when we handed back the reins, the stock market was higher than it was before COVID coming in. So, you know, we did a great job, but we didn't have time to do the big thing, which we're doing now. And it's, you know, it's like a patient is sick, you have to do surgery. Patient is very, very sick. And Joe Biden handed us over a country that was in very serious trouble, economically and in every other way. They let China run away with things. They let other countries run away with things. And maybe worst of all, in a certain way, is what they did at the border. We had people pouring into our country by the millions. Many of them were murderers and drug lords and thieves and people from prisons from all over the world. And they were people from mental institutions, insane asylums. They were taking their mentally insane, and they were dumping them into our country. And I'll tell you, Tom Homan and Kristi Noem are doing a fantastic job in removing them. And now the courts, the Supreme Court just gave us numerous good rulings where we have to be able to get them out. You had other judges trying to take over the system. And think of it, they take over, they want these people coming back, Tren de Aragua from Venezuela, the Venezuela jails that cut off the fingers of a man in Colorado. They cut off his fingers because he called the police looking for help. They said, "Did you call the police?" He said, "Yes, I did." "Put your hand down," and they cut off the fingers. This is what they want to bring these people back now. And I want to thank the president of El Salvador for the job he's done, because that's the way it has to be done. Yeah, please.
Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, they've been talking about tariffs for decades. How come when these Democrat elites want tariffs, everything's hunky-dory, but when President Trump wants tariffs, all hell breaks loose? Do you see this double standard?
I love this guy. Whoever the hell that is. That's really nice. I appreciate that question. No, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, everybody knew you had to do it, but they never had the guts to do it. It does take guts. It even takes guts for our country to go through it. That's why I say be cool. They were saying about, just be cool. It's going to work out. It's going to work out, and it's working out. I can tell you, working out.
Yeah, no, totally. Things are so good. Things are so fine.
It's going to take a little conditioning.
Teach him. Besides, you have too many energy socialists in here that don't understand the basics. Why answer every dumb question when you can teach thousands at once? Okay, take a week off.
Like it. And people investing in our country, they're going to do better than they've ever done before. We have more car manufacturers, Roger, coming into our country now, speaking of cars, We've never seen anything like it. And they're coming in because of the election, but they're coming in
crazy.
because of the tariff.
Yeah, let me start talking about.
They don't want to pay 25 or 50 or whatever it may be. They don't want to pay that. They can't
China
pay that.
and Taiwan's relationship right now in the midst of this conversation.
Mexico,
Instead,
building a plant, they're all coming into the United States. Canada, they're coming in from China. They're coming in from everywhere, and that's just cars. We have chip makers coming. We're the biggest chip maker in the world from Taiwan, coming in, spending $3 billion to build plants, and mostly a big plant. This is a hell of a plant.
I usually do that.
Kind of money there.
I just can't do that here right now in this moment. It's crazy.
You know, you'd say million would be the right number. It's not $200 to $300 billion. Think of that, $300 billion. If you look at Apple, Apple is going to spend $500 billion building a plant. They wouldn't be doing that if I didn't do this. They'd just keep building them in China, and that's unsustainable. It's not a pleasant thing to do, but I appreciate the question. And you know, interestingly, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, Crazy Nancy, they've wanted to do this for years, but they never had a president that had the guts to do it, because it does take guts, believe me.
Look. A lot of what Trump is doing today, while it is insane and belligerent seemingly and causes a lot of instability in the markets, what Trump is doing directionally is the same thing that previous administrations have been trying to do as well, but they don't have the same appetite for death and destruction that Donald Trump has, because Trump believes he can actually fucking tank it. All right? That's the major difference here. Trump believes, perhaps foolishly, that he can tank it. But the goal here is the same. Decoupling our largest trading partner and forcibly severing ties with China, and also rebuilding American manufacturing, not because you care about the industrial base, not because you care about the manufacturing jobs coming over here. That's why they openly say, I don't give a fuck. We're going to build it cheap. We're going to build it with robots. Okay. They say a bunch of fantastic things, right? The only reason why they care about building a manufacturing base in the United States of America is because building a manufacturing base in the United States of America is because of national security concerns. The American government does not care about improving labor. The American government does not care about fixing the problems of inequality here. They only care about national security. They only care about national security. They want to build shit here so that China can't just turn off the manufacturing faucet and destroy the American empire when we go to war with them. That is the point. That is the major reason. Okay, we want to go to war with China, and we can't go to war with China when we are so reliant on Chinese manufacturing. That's it. And a part of that, a part of resetting the global economy that we have designed to rely on goods being manufactured overseas, is to change the parity of the dollar, to change the currency exchange rate of the dollar and readjust it and devalue the purchasing power that the dollar has. That is what he wants to do. Okay, that's a part of what he wants to do. This is always going to be a painful process. Okay, it is not only always going to be a painful process, but it's also going to be, wait, hold on. I got groceries. This was always going to be a painful process. It was always going to cause market volatility. Okay. And I think Donald Trump is getting some of his wishes in the process. Will he be able to actually achieve his goals? Fuck no. I don't think he'll be able to actually rebuild manufacturing here. But if you want to understand what their goals are overall, Arnaud Bertrand actually summarized the insanity perfectly. Okay. I agree. This is my assessment as well. I'm using this as a baseline, as a summarization, because this is basically everything that I've been talking about for the past couple of weeks now at this point. This is an analysis of Steve Moran, the chair of the Council of Economic Advisors, the man perhaps most responsible for these decisions beyond everybody else in the administration that you've heard from. Okay. I showed you his 5 bullet points of what their expectations are from foreign nations already. And I think that that is what they're trying to do. All of these back and forth, all these conversations that are taking place with all of our trade partners, all of our allies over the course of the past couple of days is just this, making sure that they start moving in the direction of doing these 5 points in some meaningful capacity. Where is it? Hold on. Let me see if I can find the actual 5 bullet points before we get to the analysis over the 5 bullet points. But does anyone have that tweet still? Because someone had the, is this still aligned with Project 2025? Yes, it is. It is still aligned with it. It's still aligned with the ultimate goals of, here's, wait, no, this is not what I'm talking about. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Jeff Stein posted it. White House aide Stephen Moran outlines 5 potential responses foreign nations can undertake in response to the problems he says are caused by U.S. dollar dominance. By the way, I do want to point something out here. Notice how little attention this stuff gets, because this is the real shit. Okay, it's not Howard Lutnick, it's not Navarro, it's not Scott Bessent, it's not Elon Musk. This is the actual plan, and yet it gets very little coverage and very little attention. It's like shocking to me that all of these brilliant analysts are still, seemingly brilliant analysts, and these economists are still focusing on the smoke and mirrors. This is the reality. This is what they're trying to do. 1, foreign countries can accept tariffs without retaliation, giving U.S. revenue. Okay? This is stupid. That's not how tariffs work. That's not how it would have worked at all. It would just be the entry fee that the Americans are paying for. But that's the point. That's what they're saying. Okay? They can stop unfair, harmful trading practices and buy more from the United States. The real goal here is to buy more from the United States. That's what they want. They want these countries by force to purchase more American products. Do we have the capability of manufacturing more products that they can buy? Maybe. Probably not, especially not in the short term. But that's precisely what the fuck they want to do. They want to literally sell our salmonella chicken and our fucking hormone beef and our F-150s to every single country that will buy it. Every single country that doesn't want to buy it, but they have to buy it. It's basically like demanding an additional fee out of our loyal subjects in the global economy that we designed, where they became our manufacturing hubs, and now we want more back from them for even participating in the global system that we designed, that did not even benefit them in the same way that it benefited us. Yeah, they want vassals to pay tribute. They want the vassals to pay extra tribute. That's precisely what this is. Wait, what is this? Exactly the video I've been spamming for the last few days, as I explained. Are you talking about this one? Oh, this is the method to the madness, how Trump's tariff chaos actually makes sense, big picture. Yeah, I will. You're right. I will watch this video in a second. Okay? That is what is going on here. Number 3, boost defense spending and procurement from the United States. What is a major sector where we have manufacturing capabilities? Weapons. We want you to forcibly buy our weapons. You might not have use for those weapons, but you're going to fucking buy them and you're going to like them. Okay? You have to, because that's what we make. That's the only thing we make. We make bombs. So you have to buy our bombs. Okay? And then, last but not least, turn around and take the crumbs that you have of foreign capital that you've brought back into your country, and then reinvest that to make factories in the United States of America. And last but not least, you can write direct checks to the U.S. Treasury. This is the most psychotic part of the 5-point plan, okay? What an insane list of demands. But those are the demands nonetheless, okay? Don't listen to the noise in the market. Don't listen to the fucking market instability. Don't listen to anything else. This is literally what they are demanding. Arnaud writes, that's batshit insane, no other way to call it. We now have the first attempt by the White House, specifically by Steve Moran, the chair of the Council of Economic Advisors, to justify the tariffs based on economic theory. And it is without a doubt the most dishonest piece of economic reading that I've ever had the misfortune to lay my eyes upon. The gist of Moran's argument is to reposition the global reserve currency status of the dollar, not as an exorbitant privilege, which it is, okay, because that is the major power that the United States of America has. The dollar is the reserve currency. All trade happens on the dollar. 80% of trade happens on the dollar. This gives us, the United States of America, unimaginable power over everything that happens on the planet. This is how we can shut off other markets from even participating in global trade. This is the super weapon, okay? And not only have we grown fat with this super weapon, not only do we not have any of the outside pressures because we technically have a sovereign currency and the sovereign currency that is the global trade currency, that we can just print money without any of the other side effects. We can just do whatever the fuck we want. And now, this incredible privilege that we have designed around the globe, okay, that we've used to dominate the entire planet, that's being treated as though it's a fucking burden that the rest of the world needs to compensate the U.S. for bearing. And you want to know what the crazy part about this is? Our European allies do actually see this as not necessarily a burden, but cost of doing business, because they are also invested in the maintenance of capitalism and therefore historically have been terrified of the growth of socialism within the USSR. So they've gladly played the role of a vassal state for the United States of America and its empire. And now they're doing the same thing because they're terrified of China for the same exact fucking reason. Okay? For EU leadership, don't listen to what they're saying right now. I promise you, for European leadership, they see America as an unstable, dangerous partner, but at least America is still capitalist and will maintain capitalism. The Chinese might do something very scary and do socialism. We cannot let that happen. And, we have to also still align with America. America knows that that is the major pressure that they can apply to European capitalists. And therefore, Europe will pay tribute. One of the biggest trade inefficiencies that Donald Trump considers to be cheating, Europe also considers to be cheating. Okay? Ursula von der Leyen, if you recall, a year ago, as I famously brought up on this broadcast and keep bringing up on this broadcast time and time again, complained about China cheating with electric vehicles. What was that cheating? Subsidies. The Chinese industry is a command economy and therefore is controlled by the state. So the state can adjust prices and pump subsidies into its private corporations that are still maintained by the government by way of banks that the government also owns and controls, and therefore can flood the market with incredibly affordable, competitive products. This will destroy European manufacturing. Europe considers that to be cheating. Central planning is considered cheating under global trade rules. Understand that. Every person that is an economist that at least deals with the political economy will tell you that they consider what China is doing to be cheating because they are not playing by the rules of the free markets. Every country does subsidies to a certain degree. Every country maybe expands on said subsidies to a certain degree to ensure that their cost of production is low and the price points are low. But it is hilarious that they consider what China is doing to be cheating in terms of global trade because they're not participating in the free market principles that they are supposed to be participating in. It's fucking insane. So instead of turning around and going, why don't we also have a command economy? They go, hey, you guys have kept prices far too low for our consumers, and that's fucking us up. That's fucking our manufacturing up. This is the truth. I need you to understand. Don't listen to anything else. This is unironically what these fucking dumbasses believe. As Moran explains it, having the dollar as reserve currency has caused persistent currency distortions and contributed, along with other countries' unfair barriers to trade, to unsustainable trade deficits, which has decimated our manufacturing sector. That's what Stephen Moran says. Dollar being the reserve currency is used against the United States of America. Other countries devalue their currency against the dollar and then turn around and are able to export a lot more to the United States of America than the United States of America exports to the rest of the world. Because America has more purchasing power. When you have more purchasing power, then you become an economy that is a consumer rather than a producer. This is what Donald Trump talks about with respect to trade deficits. So basically, under this, if that was your major gripe here, you would obviously no longer make the dollar the reserve currency, right? Except wrong. They want to maintain the dollar as the reserve currency. They just also want you to pay for the privilege of our currency still being the reserve currency, because the alternative is the yuan, and that is terrifying. They literally are saying, you either want us to keep dominating global trade and make these decisions at the behest of capital earners or capital owners, or something much scarier can happen and China will dominate global trade. And in that situation, who knows what'll happen? Who knows what'll happen? So you have to pay us even more, despite the fact that this is a system that we designed. This is a system that we benefit from. This is a system that has allowed the United States of America to become a consumption engine without even doing any manufacturing whatsoever. This is a part of the process with the labor aristocracy. When adjusted to those who have wealth versus those who do not internally inside of the United States of America, there's great wealth inequality. But there is a severe disparity of wealth and even income when you look at the American working class as opposed to someone growing up anywhere else, even in fucking Europe, as a matter of fact. We rigged the game so that our capital owners could drive up super profits as we literally enslaved the global south to get cheap, accessible commodities at an incredibly low price. And now we're saying, well, we don't like this anymore. We don't like the system anymore. And the real problem here is China. What Donald Trump refuses to admit, and what many capitalists refuse to admit as a consequence of their dogmatic ways of approaching the capitalist economy and the capitalist structure of commodity production, is that the enemy is not China. The enemy is not Europe. The enemy is global capital. That's it. It's global capital that designed the system, and it's global capital that will make money off of the restructuring of the system. But because they do not want to recognize that reality, and they will never recognize that reality, their entire purpose is not to recognize that reality. Some of them are a part of the global capitalist structure anyway, that they turn around and make these insane decisions. Moran says that America's financial dominance cannot be taken for granted, and the Trump administration is determined to preserve it, but this same financial dominance comes at a cost, and other nations need to pay for it. He means this literally. He made a list of what he exactly means by burden sharing, and one of the forms it can take is countries simply writing checks to the Treasury that help us finance global public goods. Let's pause for a moment here to contemplate the sheer insanity of this, says Arnaud. The U.S. is literally suggesting that countries should mail checks to the U.S. Treasury as a tribute for the privilege of maintaining the dollar as a global reserve currency, when it is this very reserve status of the dollar that is the cornerstone of U.S. power. It's the equivalent of Samson asking everyone to pay him to keep his hair, because that's what Moran is conveniently not mentioning in his text. The reason Giscard d'Estaing called it exorbitant privilege in terms of the United States being the global currency, the reserve currency, is that it allowed the U.S. to quite literally have its way of life subsidized by the rest of the world. Moran and Trump complain about the trade deficits, but they are the very manifestation of this subsidization. Countries normally cannot run on a permanent trade deficit because they'd one day face a balance of payment crisis. But America does not face this crisis because America is the United States of America. They dominate the world. There is no shorting the American government, because if the dollar was no longer reliable, if people lost confidence in it, that means the entire global economy has collapsed. Okay? It's like a private individual. You cannot indefinitely buy from others, more from others than what you yourself earn. At some point, you'll have to pay up, unless that is you are the issuer of currency that everybody uses, in which case the normal rules of economic gravity are suspended. While other nations must balance their books eventually, the dollar's reserve status gives America the unique ability to consume more than it produces perpetually, with the world eagerly accepting dollars that cost nothing to create in exchange for real goods and services. That's not a burden. It's very much an exorbitant privilege. So yes, sure, because America can effectively buy most of what it needs from the rest of the world for free by printing dollars, this situation doesn't exactly create incentives to do the hard work of manufacturing goods domestically. But framing this as other countries taking advantage of America rather than America taking advantage of its currency dominance is an astonishing inversion of reality. There's also a bunch of insane lies that they spread about China in this process as well. One of them was the 2008 housing market crash, claiming that China actually contributed to the 2008 housing market crash. It wasn't our deregulation of the financial sector. No, not at all. It was actually China that did the 2008 housing market crash. What a fucking spectacular lie to say, especially to add insult to injury, that it was fucking China that bailed out the United States of America. China literally participated in saving America in the aftermath of the 2008 housing market crash. That is fucking crazy. We are so goddamn belligerent, dude. We are such fucking rabid animals. It blows my mind. But in any case, let's get back to it. While other nations must balance their books, eventually the dollar's reserve status gives America the unique ability to consume more, okay? So yes, sure, because America can effectively buy most of what it needs from the rest of the world for free by printing dollars, this situation doesn't exactly create incentives to do the hard work of manufacturing goods domestically, but framing this as countries taking advantage of America rather than America taking advantage of its currency dominance is an astonishing inversion of reality. And even more astonishing is Moran's ask that countries now compensate the U.S. for this. Some people mentioned that it's like asking vassals for tribute, but it's actually even worse than this. The tribute is already embedded in the global reserve currency status of the dollar. Other countries work hard for the U.S. while they can just issue IOUs that never come due. It's kept together by 800 fucking military bases around the planet. What Moran is thus proposing is effectively demanding vassals make payments for the privilege of already making payments, a double tribute system where countries can first subsidize American living standards by accepting dollars as reserves and then must pay an additional fee for this burden this supposedly places on the U.S. This chatter is correct. This is literally, have you said thank you? But this time, instead of yelling at Ukraine for engaging in a proxy battle that suits our interests in the region against a foreign adversary and demanding more from them in terms of natural resources and demanding that they basically fucking put their arms down and let Russia dominate them now that we're just fucking bored. Okay? This is ironically that exact same principle being played out in terms of global trade. And it's wild that a lot of Americans do not even comprehend this reality. I mean, I guess it's not that wild because this is somewhat complex. And it's also a part of the process of being the hegemonic superpower where you take this shit for fucking granted. This is literally just the way things are. What do you mean? Moran's piece is replete with other complete inversions of reality. For instance, he now blames China for the 2008 crash because their holdings of U.S. mortgage debt helped fuel the housing bubble, forcing hundreds of billions of dollars of credit into the housing sector without regard as to whether the investments made sense. They're saying China is the reason for the 2008 market crash. How fucking psychotic. Anyone even with a rudimentary knowledge of the 2008 financial crisis would have had their breath taken away by such brazen revisionism. Not only is the crisis universally known to have been caused by U.S. regulatory failures and the reckless securitization of subprime mortgages by Wall Street firms, but China in this instance literally saved U.S. markets from complete meltdown after Hank Paulson personally appealed to Beijing to continue purchasing U.S. Treasury bonds during the height of the crisis, which they did. To now blame them for the very crisis they helped mitigate and played no part in creating is beyond dishonest, is gaslighting on a geopolitical scale. All in all, it is clear what the U.S. is trying to achieve here. They effectively want to have their cake and eat it. They want to keep the privilege and want the rest of the world to pay for the downsides that come with it, which means we're truly at a crossroads in history where nations must make an immensely consequential choice: acquiescence to this insane double tribute system or stand against it. There are very few precedents in world history for such nakedly exploitative power plays, but history is very clear on two things. Submitting to extortion only invites more of it, and collective resistance is the only effective response. Now, here's what I think. Our vassals will pay the double tribute. And China might even in the short term play ball. And it will still end in failure. Okay? So Donald Trump might literally get his wishes across. And the major reason as to why, especially from the perspective of our vassals paying double tribute now, is because they're terrified, especially EU, is fucking terrified of the entire structure of the planet, the entire political economy, the entire global trade changing. The rule makers, being the United States of America, means that capitalism continues. If the rule makers become China, then capital owners are going to lose out big. They're going to lose their status. They're going to lose the way that these hierarchies have been designed. Because if China makes the rules, then everyone has to subsidize their industries to the same degree. They have to have state-run companies to be able to compete with China if there is any sort of competition in global trade at all at that point. Therefore, there's no more capitalism effectively, or at least capitalism does not work in the ways that it has for as long as it has worked, as long as America has been the dominant power around the globe. Because the dominant power, the hegemonic power, writes the rules for trade. And they get to violate those rules, but it doesn't matter because they're the dominant power. America technically hasn't really violated the rules all that much because of endless fucking greed. Because it's not like our state doesn't subsidize industries heavily. It's not like we don't rely on U.S. aid, for example, which is literally a mechanism to destabilize the global south to ensure that they do not have their own agricultural output. It is a way for us. It is a way for our farmers that already get subsidies, and also farm subsidies or agriculture is not even considered a part of the rules of global trade anyway. But it's just one example that I'm giving you in terms of how America will, one, subsidize our agricultural output, and then two, pay farmers to literally give the agricultural output to other countries for free, which ends up destabilizing those countries and causes them to not build their own domestic agricultural outputs and become over reliant on American farmers shipping the agricultural output. Instead, it creates dependency. But outside of that, America also heavily subsidizes all manufacturing in this country. The problem is, under normal circumstances, if those subsidies actually led to much cheaper goods being produced here in the United States of America, if those subsidies actually worked in the same way that it does in China, for example, to offer much more affordable vehicles, for example, okay, vehicles that these other countries want, then yes, America technically would be cheating as well. But they don't do that. What do people do with the subsidies? The subsidies don't make its way to more affordable products. The subsidies don't actually work in the way that it's intended. The subsidies go back to stock buybacks. And therefore, America seemingly doesn't cheat in the global on the global stage because they pocket them. Because since the Reagan era, it is no longer illegal to engage in stock buybacks. That's it. Now, one of the reasons as to why I keep saying that this will still ultimately be a failure, okay? This will ultimately still be a failure is because America is not China. In the long term, this will still fail because America does not have a command economy. That is the entire point, because the real enemies here, and Trump kind of recognized this as well, okay? But the real enemy here is not fucking China. The real enemy is global capital. These people are supranational actors. They are not actually a part of the nation state. That's why Apple pays taxes, even though they dodge taxes there as well, in Ireland, okay? There is no national allegiance. That's not a real thing. Global capitalism has global capitalism and global trade and the way that America has designed global trade at the behest of capital owners has made it so that there is no real national understanding for capitalists. Directly, this is a universal class war against capital owners that do not have any sort of allegiance or loyalty to a singular fucking nation versus the entirety of the global labor force. So if you actually wanted to fix this process and truly wanted to improve American manufacturing, you would work by improving the American labor force. You would work by improving the material conditions of the American labor force and rebuild labor unions, for example, to create a mechanism of pushback against capital. But Donald Trump doesn't want to do that. He's doing the exact opposite. Donald Trump also and his administration routinely admit that they are not even interested in bringing manufacturing back into the United States of America for no reason other than the fact that they don't want China to have it, because they're worried that China could fucking shut off the manufacturing faucet in times of war. So they keep saying, we're just going to build robots. It's going to be cheap because robots are going to build the factories and robots are going to build the fucking manufacturing. Automation and AI is going to make all of this work. That doesn't mean you get a job at the factory. And this is before you think, well, there are already jobs in this country. The problem is not jobs. The problem is that those jobs don't pay. The problem is that no one fantasizes about working at a factory for the sake of working in the factory alone. People fantasize about working in a factory because they fantasize about 1965 living standards. That's what they want. They want benefits. They want a single income household to be able to pay for all of the children. They want a upward social mobility for their next generation. Many of you that now work white collar jobs probably had blue collar parents. And the one thing that blue collar parents probably told you was, hey, I'm doing everything in my fucking power so you don't have to go work at a goddamn factory because this shit fucking sucks. My back is broken. I'm constantly medicated. I don't want this future for you. I want you to have a better future. The irony, of course, is that the issue here is not the factory job itself, but instead the fact that jobs don't pay, the fact that there is an affordability crisis, the fact that housing is impossible to achieve, the fact that you will never retire. That is the real problem. We have jobs. We have 23% underemployment in this fucking country right now. We could fix those problems. But, of course, that would require restructuring the way that we depend on maintaining capitalism as the established order. We cannot remove the capitalist dogmatic thought from our minds. We will never be able to do that. The entire system itself is designed around uplifting and maintaining capitalism. That's it. So let's hear from Yanis Varoufakis, who I believe was correct on his assessment of what Trump was trying to do.
Trump, the American dollar, and China. What to watch for during 2025. Donald Trump wants to boost exports, to bring American jobs back to the United States, and to shrink the American trade deficit. For that, he needs a lower value of the dollar. For that, he needs a weaker dollar. But at the same time, Donald Trump wants a strong dollar, and he will not brook any discussion of ending the exorbitant privilege, the centrality, the hegemony, the dominance of the American dollar in international transactions. Can Donald Trump possibly have both? Donald Trump's first problem is that the tariffs that he has invested so much political capital in introducing, announcing, and advocating for will most likely boost the value of the dollar. Why? Primarily because every time there is global uncertainty, whenever there is a problem that emanates from the United States, whether that was the 2008 crisis or whatever crisis there is a paradoxical rush of foreign money into the United States, boosting the dollar. So if Trump's tariffs create global uncertainty, the likely outcome will be an increased value of the dollar. And that's his first problem, because if his tariffs succeed in creating a lot of consternation across the world, in China, in the European Union, in Britain, the result will be that even if imports initially shrink as a result of these large tariffs, the influx of money into the United States of capital is going to boost the value of the dollar, therefore countering whatever effects the tariffs had on limiting imports and enhancing American exports. Donald Trump's second problem is that if he proceeds with his very large tax cuts, especially for corporations and the oligarchs and the very rich in the United States, this is also going to attract into the United States foreign capital. And what will that do? Boost the value of the dollar, and therefore enhance the gap between American savings and investment, with investment being much greater than savings, which is a root cause of the American trade deficit. Trump's third problem is the exorbitant privilege of the United States dollar. It is the reason why every time there is a crisis, especially one emanating from within the United States, the dollar goes up and the US trade deficit gets worse, especially during...
This video was uploaded 3 months ago. And Yanis Varoufakis has been calling this out for quite some time at this point. And last night I came to the realization that I think he is correct on his assessment that Donald Trump wants to devalue the dollar in an effort to rebalance trade. As in, Donald Trump wants, simply put, Donald Trump wants to make America poorer. Donald Trump wants to make Americans poorer than they were yesterday so that the poor Americans will be able to manufacture goods just so we can maintain manufacturing domestically for national security concerns. That's their assessment, not mine. And be able to produce more product for the rest of the world to purchase. Donald Trump is not smart enough for any of this 3D chess? Yes, because Donald Trump is not personally doing this, chatter. Please. Just like Joe Biden wasn't personally doing shit. His brain is doo-doo. Donald Trump's brain is doo-doo. And so is Joe Biden's brain. It's not actually what Donald Trump's... Donald Trump is not making these decisions. People around him are. He is just the guy who is the messenger. He is the vessel.
In periods of reduced demand, jobs, and employment within the United States. So if Donald Trump were serious about shrinking the American trade deficit, he would want to do away with the exorbitant privilege of the United States dollar. But of course, not only will he never allow himself to do that, because his best friends, his tribe, are the rentiers and the financiers who will be aghast if the United States loses the exorbitant privilege of its dollar. It is highly unlikely that Donald Trump will want to be the first American president after the Second World War that loses the hegemonic power of the United States by losing the exorbitant privilege of the United States dollar. Some argue, and I think they do have a point, that maybe...
This doesn't make sense. You can't devalue the dollar without inducing hyperinflation and tax cuts strengthen the dollar. What does he gain from a weak dollar exactly? Yeah, that's why he's saying it's stupid if he does tax cuts after this as well. But what does he gain from a weak dollar is basically nothing. I mean, there's no immediate gain aside from the fact that a weaker dollar overall means that you can rebalance trade to a certain degree because the products that we're building here and selling to the rest of the world become more affordable automatically because all currency is traded against the dollar. So if a country's a currency is devalued against the dollar and the dollar's purchasing power is high, then that country still has jobs. That country still has manufacturing, and that country can export to the United States of America. If the dollar is weak or weaker than it was, then Americans don't have the same purchasing power in the international market that we have benefited from in perpetuity. But instead, we manufacture things that other countries can purchase from us.
Maybe what he's trying to do, what Donald Trump is trying to do, is he is threatening the world, China and the European Union in particular, with very large tariffs in order to come to an arrangement with them to accept a depreciation of the Chinese yuan, of the euro, of competing currencies, in order for the United States to see its exports rise and its imports diminish. To cut a deal, in other words, something along the lines of what Ronald Reagan did in 1985, the infamous Plaza Accords, supposedly a multilateral meeting between the Europeans, the Americans, the Canadians, the Australians. But in reality, what the Plaza Accords were about was an ultimatum by Washington on Tokyo. Appreciate the yen massively, or else I'm going to slap large tariffs on Japanese exports. The Japanese are rolled over. They did as a...
So remember what I said about how Donald Trump wants to do Plaza Accords to the rest of the world? Ironically, when I was in Japan and we were talking about the tariffs, that's what this is. Problem is, I don't think you can do that to China. I don't think you can do that to the EU. They'll roll over because they have additional concerns about American dominance going away. If America is no longer the hegemonic superpower, then that breeds instability for capital owners in general. And this entire system is designed so that capital owners are never unstable and on shaky ground. But I do think that a lot of the countries will play ball with this. I think so. I think they will. I think they're too scared of. They're more scared of what it means if China is the hegemonic power than America being the hegemonic power, because America being the hegemonic power means capitalism continues, and these guys are short-sighted. That capitalism and capitalist dogma implies you have to be short-sighted. You have to think in quarters. So they're so afraid of a change to not just who gets to make the rules, but also what those new rules might look like, that I think they will remain servile to American interests in this process.
They were told. The reason why Japan's massive growth rates between 1950 and 1985 were eliminated, and why Japan lost its verve, its dynamism, was because they accepted those Plaza Accords. Is China likely to accept a new Plaza Accords? I assign a 0 probability to that possibility. China is no Japan. Japan was an occupied country by the United States. Yeah. The United States wrote its constitution. There are tens of thousands of American soldiers still occupying Okinawa. China, I will repeat this once more, is not Japan. It is highly unlikely that they will accept, at a time when the capital account of China, if anything, would recommend from an economic point of view a depreciation of the yuan. They will never accept a massive appreciation of the kind that would make the difference for the United States trade deficit in the way that Donald Trump would like. So this is pie in the...
You think China becoming the world power would degrade their current political structure? Yes, even within a capitalist framework, it still would do that. Because if you look at global trade as competitive market forces inside of different countries fighting with the same rule book that has been designed by the United States of America, China becoming the hegemonic leader of global markets means that other countries have to follow suit, which means by force, other countries also have to restructure their economies to a command economy. Ironically, the reason why they don't have to do that right now is because America sets the standard. America sets the standard for global trade, and the best you can do is a little subsidies here, a little subsidies there, but you're still participating within the same framework. That's why they say China cheats all the time. China's not cheating. China is simply doing a command economy. Central planning. The market reaction is the most insane thing I've ever seen. No, I don't think it's insane at all. I think that I think it's very sane within the insane framework that the market operates in. That's what it is. They're so desperate. Yet, yes, or 2 days ago, we saw the same insane reaction when it was a fucking fake tweet that caused $6 trillion of fucking value to come back to the markets virtually in a matter of hours, only to have it get eroded once again. Or not 6 trillion, sorry. That's why I keep saying money has never been faker than it is at this moment. It is the most fake it's ever been.
This executive order relates to defense procurement. Our current defense procurement process has been criticized by many folks on both sides of the aisle as being too slow to adapt to new and changing technology.
Okay, well, let me finish this Giannis clip and then we'll get to Trump.
No new Plaza Accords between the United States and Beijing this time are on the horizon. In that sense, it looks very unlikely that what Donald Trump wants, at least both his objectives of shrinking the US trade deficit and maintaining the exorbitant privilege of the dollar, that both these objectives will be satisfied at once in 2025, in the next 4 years. The great question, however, for 2025 and beyond concerns China's dilemma. Will Beijing decide to stay put?
Oh, what's the bull case? We import $500 billion of goods from China every year. Those items have massively increased in price, 10% tariffs against everyone else. No, there is no bull case. You're right. I'm saying that I tweeted about this earlier today. It is an indication that we are completely fucking insane, that the market reacted the way that it did to Donald Trump because he scaled back on the fucking violence a little bit. I said, Trump is such a madman that the markets and smart economists are looking at Trump forcibly severing ties with our largest trading partner as a good thing because at least he didn't nuke the entirety of global trade. Like, he literally, I gave an example of just, I gave an example earlier where it's like he walked in, put a gun to his own mouth, said, I'm going to fucking pull the trigger and I'm going to kill a bunch of people in the process. And then after killing a couple people and shooting himself in the foot, he turned around and said, you know, maybe I'm not going to kill everyone. And everyone was like, oh, thank God, we're saved now. It's insane. It's insane. That's how fucking short-term, that's how short-term our analysts are. And the way that people look at the markets, that is how fucking short-term thinking focused we are here in the United States of America, where they're like, oh, a moment of respite, thank God. There is no fucking respite. There is no respite. China outflanked them this time around. Trump's issue was that the dollar did not go up when this happened, and China threatened to dump yields. Long-term even started spiking, which meant the dollar as a reserve currency is already on shakier footing than he estimated, and the USA has far less economic influence than they calculated. Of course, the EU will probably bend over anyways. Yes. So basically, he got at least some of his wishes across with respect to like decoupling Chinese manufacturing from at least like the American market to a certain degree, at least for the short term, with hopes that China will come to the table and meet their demands.
Gaining time until the United States' internal contradictions, Trump's conundrum and dilemma, plays out. Or will Beijing make the choice, which it has not made yet? They have not made up their minds yet, and I think reasonably, will, however, at some point make the choice, make the decision to convert the BRICS area into a new version of Bretton Woods. Just as Bretton Woods had at its heart the US dollar, for the BRICS area to have the yuan at its heart, with more or less fixed exchange rates between the yuan, the rupiah, and other currencies, and with a view to recycle China's surpluses within the BRICS area, because that would be the greatest and most lethal danger.
What's really funny about this also is that, like, for there to even be a secondary market, like, America designed global trade in a way and also implemented the most insane sanctions regime and purposely kept the global south as poor as they physically could. And only one of those countries that America exploited was able to, through central planning, even development and rapid urbanization, was able to overcome the downwards pressure that was applied. That is China. America created this secondary market on its own through its fucking insane attitude, through its incredible greed. And they're basically pushing this as well. This is at the heart of the One Belt, One Road initiative. This is why I kept repeating to you guys that, like, China's interest in Africa wasn't just to, like, maintain its natural resources and have a monopoly on these rare earth minerals in both extraction and processing. That is definitely one of the goals, but the real goal there, and the reason why their loans were unconditional and removed easily in times of need, as opposed to the IMF and the World Bank loans that these countries were used to, was because they wanted to raise the living standards in Africa so that they could develop a market in Africa, so that ultimately, when push came to shove and America tried to do exactly what they're trying to do right now, as they've signaled since Barack Obama's administration, that they would have a way to move their consumer base and spread it out to the best of their ability to other now developed markets. That was the goal. Now, it's not complete, of course. A big part of the One Belt, One Road initiative, of course, revolves around America's moves in the Middle East, and that America's continued imperial dominance in the region has made it very difficult for China to complete that initiative. But that was the goal, and that is what America was afraid of. And because they've been able to make leeway in that goal, they can, because they were able to achieve some of their goals here, that they can withstand America's volatile behavior in this process. But here it is. The bond market was part of the reason why he reversed. I was watching the bond market. It was very tricky. If you look at it now, it's beautiful. The bond market right now is beautiful.
Believe me.
that persuaded you to reverse course?
I was watching the bond market. The bond market is very tricky. I was watching it, but if you look at it now, it's beautiful. The bond market right now is beautiful. But yeah, I saw last night where people were getting a little queasy. I think everything had. Well, the big move wasn't what I did today. The big move was what I did on Liberation Day. We had Liberation Day in America. We were liberated from all of the horrible deals that were made, all of the horrible trade deals that were made. And I was helped by people just like this, senator, congressman, and friends, right? And we had great help in the Senate. Our Republican senators have been amazing. They stood tall.
Yeah. So liberated, dude. So liberated. Here, this is it, by the way. This is literally it. Look at this. Look at 2000. Look at the year 2000 versus 2024. It is because China was able to use global capitalism and the endless appetite for profits from global capital owners to its advantage. Okay? This is why these guys keep saying, oh my God, China is cheating. China is cheating. This is what they're terrified of. Here's another take that I have that I keep repeating over and over again. I said, ironically enough, for Trump's decoupling from China initiative to work, we would have to become more like China, a command economy. The notion that can happen entirely with private enterprise from bullied foreign nations in an expeditious manner is delusional capitalist dogma. The only way for America to become a competitive force in global trade to what you're seeing here, is not by bullying our vassals to pay double tribute, as Arnaud said, but instead to become a command economy ourselves, to become China ourselves. The Chinesefication of America must happen. And even then, it would take at least a decade to rebuild the robust manufacturing base. And considering that we're not going to do that, considering that we're not going to ever do that, as a matter of fact, because that goes against the reason why America is the dominant power still to this day, is because it maintains capitalism. This goes against that. If America became overnight an anti-capitalist nation, or overnight got hit with the fucking Mao Zedong thought beam, and everyone was holding up a copy of the Little Red Book and decided to nationalize key sectors overnight, then perhaps we could compete with China. But that is, in some ways, I think, the natural evolution. Maybe I'm too much of a glazer of Marx here, but this is a natural evolution that has to take place at a certain point. You either give way to China and allow China to dominate the entire fucking planet and become a diminished force on the planet in the process because they just dominate fucking global trade because they have a command economy, or you restructure your economy and naturally also become a centrally planned country. Is it even possible to make a capitalist version of China? No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what is happening here. There's no way to do that. Well, this is embarrassing. Just yesterday, I borrowed and spent $700 billion on the assumption that there'd be a domestic manufacturing boom. People specifically told me Jamie Dimon would not slut President Trump out. This is also great. I've made so many jokes about Jamie Dimon freaking out and reenacting the raid to protect the money, but the reality is much funnier. He just called up the White House and said, I really hate to say it, but you're fucking stupid. Trump went, yes, sir. No, I think you're 100% right. Just look at things historically. The wealth inequality in America is a critical mass. The media and the wealthy can only keep tricking the masses for so long. At some point, the public will demand concessions from those in power or face a French-style, Russian-style revolution. It's in the interest of those in power to concede for their own good. I don't even think that. I think that, like, I'm talking about the ways in which, like, global trade operates. I'm talking about nation states and how they move in this process. And I think in order to become competitive to China, they have to become China. And in the absence of that, America will not be able to get their wishes across, especially because global capital is malleable. They can move. They're fluid. They have no allegiance or loyalty to a singular market or a singular nation state. They have only allegiances to maintaining their profits and maintaining the capitalist structure. And therefore, they can just wait out the Trump administration, for example. They can just wait it out. A dangerous, unstable madman like Donald Trump doesn't exactly present a lot of confidence in foreign investors to be like, all right, I guess we should build factories in this fucking country whose infrastructure has been crumbling since the New Deal was implemented. You know? Why the fuck would they? Why would they be like, yeah, I really want to move manufacturing away from China, for example, that has literally become the domineering force for a good reason, not just because the labor there is cheap, as Tim Apple himself once famously volunteered, where he literally said, even if Chinese manufacturing was as expensive as American manufacturing, I'd still make my shit in China because they have a manufacturing base. The quality of the build is significantly higher than anything anyone else has. They have a fucking incredibly educated base of producers. These things take fucking time. You can't just do it overnight. You can't just wish cast fucking factories coming back to the United States of America and then assume that we have a competent, trained a base of laborers. That's it. We're moving in the opposite direction anyway. We're fucking defunding education in this goddamn country too. It's so stupid. Anyway, this is the other, what is this? Politics Joe? Giannis talking similar to the one you pulled up.
Nothing is new under the sun. He talks about draining the swamp, Wall Street, and so on and so forth. And the first thing he did in 2017 was to appoint the CEO of Goldman Sachs as the Treasury Secretary. This is the modus operandi of the fascists. What they want is they want to have their cake and eat it. They want to devalue the dollar without jeopardizing the exorbitant privilege of the dollar, the reserve currency status of the dollar. Is this far-fetched? No, it's not far-fetched. He starts with the tariffs.
Do you think he actually doesn't realize that? Like, there's an ulterior motive here. I can't see it. No, the only thing here is the fear. Okay? Is the fear that China has the capacity to shut off manufacturing at a moment's notice if China behaved in the same way that the United States of America behaved and wasn't insanely restrained, okay, in ways that America does not deserve, mind you. But if China operated like America, America would be done, okay? Like, think about that. If China was in the game of volatility in the same way that America operates, they would literally destroy America. They would shut off the fucking faucet of manufacturing overnight. The luck that America has that is running out at this point is that China doesn't play by those rules and is relatively restrained in general. That is the irony here. That's why I think China might even play ball in the short term. Yeah, you just read it in the Twitter thread. During the 2008 crash, one of U.S.'s weakest moments, China still continued buying American bonds at the request of the Fed. Exactly. They want stability. And even though Donald Trump will make things unstable, they will try to maintain stability to the best of their ability. And we'll keep fucking yelling at them as though they are the villains in this process while we are directly the villains. We're just vilifying them. We're vilifying our allies. We're vilifying everybody. We're the villains. You underestimate American workers. The problem is lack of capital investment. Companies investing overseas because the cost of labor is lower. If companies were penalized for investing in countries with low labor standards and invested here, they would have no problem finding qualified workers. Chatter. I don't think you understand what I'm saying. Okay? That takes time. That takes a shit ton of time, and to completely restructure the way we operate. Okay? In order for that to happen, we would need to, one, not explode education, but instead build education, public education. We would need a shit ton of public sector investment, maybe even nationalization, as a matter of fact. It took China 30 years to get to this point. America has a lot more wealth than China, and America had better infrastructure than China at its starting point. So technically, we could do it maybe under the best possible estimations in a decade. But it will not happen tomorrow. What do you think happens in that decade? While America gets hit with this beam where they are anti-capitalist and actually fucking working at the behest of the American labor force. Like, it's not going to happen. You can't try to capitalism your way out of this problem that capitalism created initially in an effort to maintain capitalism. It's just not going to happen. You're thinking, oh, we'll do more of the problem. I'm not saying that the American workers are incapable. I'm saying that America has made it so that its workers are not capable right now. And in order for our workers to be capable of this, of becoming the manufacturing hub That would require a tremendous amount of investment and a runway that takes up at least a decade under insane circumstances that are not present right now. All I'm stating.
And then in the one-on-one discussions with each of our leaders, hapless leaders, I should say, he demands different things from different people, depending on what they have to give him. Nobody is immune to the global fallout.
Yanis Varoufakis, welcome back to Politics. Joe, thank you for joining me, Ollie Dugmore, today. How would you like to introduce yourself before we get started? 10%
homes and the financialization of the whole economy through the City of London. And that is simply not a sustainable model. It hasn't been sustainable for a while, but Donald Trump is making it absolutely clear that business cannot continue as usual in the United Kingdom, just as it cannot continue as usual in the European Union.
Isn't it that there appears to be, it might be a small part of the Venn diagram, but at least some crossover between the sort of the nationalist populists in America, led by the likes of Steve Bannon, and
okay, I'm gonna get back to Donald Trump because I want to hear what President Trump has to say. He's live right now.
They went for like a year and a half, almost 2 years, screaming and ranting and raving. Democrats plus two worse than Democrats. And Liz Cheney, and crying.
In the long term, wouldn't tariffs against China be a good thing for America to reduce their reliance on Chinese manufacturing and working towards building our manufacturing base? No, because the problem is not building our manufacturing base. If you build your manufacturing base and then either depress labor, depress wages, as we have consistently at the behest of capital, or even fucking fully automate that process, then the same income inequality will persist. You're not actually helping the American population in that regard. You're just simply trying to extend and give a lifeline to American dominance. And also, this process in and of itself cannot be done with a private-public partnership anyway. You can't just like expect capital to come back into the United States of America and build a fucking robust manufacturing base without the infrastructure projects necessary to build said robust manufacturing base. That would require an unimaginable amount of fucking money.
They found out that Pelosi was the one that was in charge of the security of the Capitol, and she knew all about it, and she admitted her guilt to her daughter, who was a movie documentary person. I'm sure her daughter's not too happy about that. I'm sure Crazy Nancy's not too happy. But we found out all the things, everything. And we go for the information. Sir, we've destroyed all of that information. If I haven't destroyed it, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I guarantee you that. I'd be sitting someplace else. So I think it's something that we should really
Whitmer's in this room, by the way.
It's so important. The whole concept of an auto pen, because whoever's, you know, auto pens are run by somebody. Whoever ran the auto pen was president of the United States, and I would be willing to bet that Biden didn't know.
Oh my God!
Probably didn't know anything about any of it.
Oh my God! He's still on the auto pen shit.
Very dangerous. So you're going to check that out, right?
Yes, sir. This is just another proclamation, sir, declaring national crime.
So do you just like wish for the downfall of the United States? Everything you're saying right now is pure doomerism. What do you want me to do? Fucking lie to you? What a stupid expectation from you, chatter. Hey, man, can you please just say that Donald Trump's insane moves are actually for the greater good and make me feel good about the situation? Yes, dude. 10% tariffs that you will pay for globally, plus severing ties with our largest trading partner is a good thing, okay? Yeah, I will make it make sense for you. What the fuck is this expectation? People are so stupid, man.
Air Force
Holy
Base
fuck.
open, strong, thriving, and I think we're going to be successful, Governor. I think we'll be very successful at that. We've gotten some good feedback from Pete Hegseth and Department of Defense.
Can you please lie to me? Yeah, go watch Asmongold if you want someone to say based over Donald Trump's fucking idiotic decisions, okay? Like, plenty of people do choose that route where they're like, I just want someone to whisper sweet nothings into my ear, you know what I mean? And act like all of these decisions are actually very good and will make my Western chauvinist perspective emboldened, make me feel emboldened about American enterprise. Hell yeah, it's gonna fucking happen.
First of all,
you'll come back when you realize perhaps all of that was a fucking house of cards built upon a pile of shit.
It'll be critical to Michigan's economy and our security when you're able to deliver us
Nils
another
the
mission
chef,
there.
thank you for the 50
but on the Asian
bones.
carp, you know, for years, when Obama was there, we could never get anyone to do anything about this invasive species that's going to destroy our Great Lakes. You know how important recreational fishing and so much of that is to our state. Because of your work, we're hopeful that we'll get a solution there and we'll get that barrier built so we can protect our Great Lakes. So thank you, Mr. President.
And they're very powerful fish. I mean, I see them, they jump out of the water, they jump at the fishermen. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. And has this gotten into any of the other lakes yet? Because you would think it would be pretty easy because they're all sort of connected. Governor?
It's why we're working so hard to make sure that, you know, we work with the Army Corps and erect a barrier so that the Asian carp can't get into Lake Michigan. It'll devastate the ecosystem, the economy, tourism, and it's 20% of the world's fresh waters in the Great Lakes, Mr. President, which is why it's so important that as a nation we protect the
very powerful fish.
Yep.
And,
The greatest
all
fish.
Of a sudden, I assume the lakes
It will
are
make
all
the sushi with the
interconnected,
fish.
right? So
I
at
love
some
the
point, they're
fish.
gonna
I
be
want to
in
kiss the
the
fishies.
other lakes. And so we're going to work hard on that. I spoke with the Army Corps of Engineers, and they have a method. It's a pretty gruesome method, but it's
I've underfunded the Army Corps of Engineers, but even with the limited funding and the layoffs, they'll be able to kiss the fish.
thing when you get right down to it. It's a very expensive thing, actually. It costs a lot. I looked at the numbers. I said, well, but we have to save Lake Michigan because these fish, they eat everything in the way, including the other fish. They eat everything. Are people endangered by the fish?
I think I mean, they're going to eat all the fish there. We won't be able to fish anymore, and that's a big deal in Lake Michigan. There's a lot of fishing, recreation, so it's going to be a problem there. But you're right, it's bipartisan, sir, but you're the one taking action on these issues. We couldn't get Biden to do it on Selfridge. This thing has been delayed for, 15 years where we were trying to do it. It started under Obama where we were trying to do it. He wouldn't do anything about it. So we appreciate you paying so much attention to this and taking action.
Well,
sir.
I would. And the governor, in all fairness, called me about it. I had seen it, and she called me, and John James called me. And, we spoke with your office. It's, I want to put that down. Really is bipartisan. It's great to see it, actually. It's great to see that. And that includes Selfridge, too. And we're going to get it done, and we'll all stand there together and cut a ribbon. Okay? Gretchen? Good. That's good. Thank you very much. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, he hates the Californian fish, but the Michigan fish he loves, and he will preserve the Michigan fish. Understand something, I will do everything in my power to kill the smelt. The Californian Delta will cry. The smelt will cry. I hate that fish, but the Michigan fish, very important fish to me. Very powerful fish in Michigan.
Where does the TikTok deal stand, given what we've seen, the tariffs
Well,
to
it's moving
China?
along, but obviously, I would say right now China's not exactly thrilled about signing it. We have a deal with some very good people, some very rich companies that would do a great job with it. But we're going to have to wait to see what's going to happen with China. So I think China's going to want to do it, actually.
What you believe is the end game with China? Are you waiting for President Xi to blink? How do you think this is all going to be resolved?
Look, for years we've been ripped off and taken advantage of by China and others, in all fairness. But by China, that's the big one. And it's just one of those things. You know, we're making $2 billion a day right now, this country. $2 billion a day with tariffs. And they were making $2 billion a day. We'll be making more. Now, when you see what happened today, I don't know if it's still there. You know, I looked an hour ago, but we were up like close to 3,000 points. Nobody's ever seen a day like that. I think that's a record, isn't it, fellas?
Definitely.
Is that a record?
It's a big
Who would have thought we were going to have a record like that after watching? But because geniuses of the world.
I like that he's like collecting little trophies. He's got the FIFA trophy. He's got the Gulf of America behind him. Every time he does like some aesthetic move that is undeniable, like if it's inconsequential overall, he will just like present it as though, you know, this is a beautiful thing I did. Look at this beautiful thing I did.
And but the people that do this for a living, some of them are very smart and some of them aren't smart at all. But these guys are very smart, and my group is very smart. My whole group is smart. And you've done so amazing on the border. I read the other day that there were 9 people and hundreds of thousands 2 years ago with Biden. And we had 9. We had it down to 9, and they were all let in for medical reasons. They were in bad shape. We let them in for medical reasons, not even for anything else. So you've been amazing. But that's a big thing. I think it's one of the greatest problems that I've never seen anything like it. Open borders. The whole world was emptied out. Prisons from all over the world, from the Congo in Africa, from Africa to Asia, a lot in South America, but it wasn't just South America. Prisons emptied out, and I said it outside with the drivers before, but El Salvador has been amazing, that job that the president's done. He's coming to see me next week, and we look forward to that, but that's really been amazing. Yes?
Mr. President, the EU also announced increases in tariffs today. Why not treat...
Bad timing for them. That's bad timing.
Why not?
They didn't put them in. No, they threatened them, but they picked a later date, which our expectation is it's going to be later still.
Okay. I'm glad that they held back.
This was the strategy all along, to bring them to the table. Why did you instruct or advise, or maybe they did it on their own, some of your top aides to say this is not a negotiation, to hold the line, that they were going to hold the line, that you were not going to change your mind?
A lot of times it's not a negotiation until it is, and that happens. And, you know, I said outside that you have to have flexibility to do it right, and that's what we have. We brought everybody to the table, and it may not be a negotiation. It may not last. I mean, you know, things may be asked that I think are not fair to us. Look, we've been ripped off by essentially everybody for 35 years. This is not just a new thing. And Roger Penske just left. He's a great gentleman, great man, actually. And he said no other president would have had the guts to do this. And I believe that's right. They wouldn't have done it. They should have done this a long time ago. A long time ago they should have done it. I started it with China. I took in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs and taxes from China in my first term. And we had the greatest economy. We were up 88% on the stock market. That was the greatest ever in the history of our country. But it had to be done. It's something that had to be done.
Mr. President, thank you so much. Which countries will be negotiating first? Do you have any criteria? Because, for example, Brazil and the UK, they do not have deficits with the US. They have a surplus. They do not have a surplus. They have deficits with the US. So what is the criteria? And also, would you consider talking or meeting with Xi Jinping?
No, sure. He's a friend of mine. I like him. President Xi, I like him. I respect him. But they haven't treated our country right.
Why won't she call me? She needs to call me on my cell phone. He has my number.
South Korea is here. Others are here.
I'm a big fan.
And we're trying to see him. It's, from what I hear, it's much more than 75. I said 75 plus.
So many.
It's everybody wants to make a deal, actually, and you know we want to do what's right for our country. We also want to do what's right for the world. The world is important. I mean, you know, it's the world, right? And I think we're going to make a lot of people very happy. And I think investing in the United States of America will be the greatest investment that anybody's ever made.
Is that something you're still considering moving forward?
Yeah, well, I will be, because we want them coming back. You know, we realized during COVID that we don't make our drugs and our pharmaceuticals in this country. So I realized that, and it was a big realization. We had to go to China to get drugs. We had to go to other places. I won't even mention the names, but we had to go to other places. We don't make it, and that's because we let them leave. And now if they want to come back, we're going to put tariffs on the pharmaceutical companies, and they're going to all want to come back. They're going to come back. I'm not going to pay them any money like Biden with the chip deal. That chip deal was horrible. They give billions and billions of dollars to chip companies. All they have is money. They have so much money. And they give billions of dollars. And they're just going to keep the money. They're not going to
what
spend
is the
it.
expectation?
And the only thing that's going to bring them back
that is literally the closest that the American government has arrived at his vision of rebuilding a robust manufacturing base, at least for chip manufacturing. What do you mean? This part is so crazy because, like, the CHIPS Act doesn't go far enough, okay? It doesn't go far enough. It's limited still because of the capitalist dogma. Donald Trump thinks that capital owners will magically arrive at this conclusion on their own because they've been bullied into doing this.
They need and the energy that they need. and it'll be approved by
Like,
Lee
the problem
Zeldin,
is
a total professional.
the CHIPS Act in and of
it'll be
itself
approved very
does not
quickly.
go far
They'll get
enough
their zoning very
to
quickly. They'll have everything done in a matter of
American
months.
manufacturing. This fucking dumbass thinks he's going to have it happen magically.
You procured a record amount of private sector investments since your election, $7 trillion. You talked about the importance of all that. Can you talk about how these investments will have a positive impact on families who felt like the previous economy left them behind, and why your executive orders on coal yesterday is so important given the amount of manufacturing that you're ushering back in?
Good, thank you. And which is correct. We have, I would say, more than $7 trillion now, right, of investment coming in. Apple is coming in for $500 billion alone. We have other companies coming in with massive numbers. We have car companies that are coming in. No, we've never seen anything like it. Maybe in the 1940s or 50s or something, but we've never seen anything like it. They had 3 plants canceled in Mexico. Not that we want to hurt Mexico, but we're for us. And that's what my job is. It's not to take care of other countries, but I want to help other countries as much as I can, but we have to take care of America first, and it's about America first. So we have many, many companies coming in that would have never come in if we didn't win the election and then put the tariffs on. And they're coming in because when they build in the United States, there are no tariffs. You don't have to pay any tariffs. So instead of paying 30, 40, 50% or 25%, but it could go a lot higher in some of the industries. So we have steel mills right now that are raging. The steel industry was gone. If I didn't put the tariffs on steel, because China was dumping massive amounts of steel in my first term, and I put tariffs on it, I saved the steel industry, but now it's going to thrive, maybe like never before. I mean, if you go back to U.S. Steel from 90 years ago, it was incredible. It was the #1 company in the world for a long time. That's why we don't want to see it go to Japan. And we love Japan, but U.S. Steel was a very special company. We don't want it to go to Japan or any other place. So we're working with them, and I don't know if they need any money now. I'll be honest with you, they hit gold. They hit gold because if you look at it, they have such orders for steel now. It's incredible. What's going on in our country is incredible with respect to plants. So we lost 90,000 plants and factories from the beginning of NAFTA, the worst trade deal ever made in the history of this world, but certainly in the history of trade. There's never been a worse trade deal. We were able to cancel that. We had to get approval from Congress. It was like a disastrous curse because you had to go to Congress to get it terminated. You couldn't just terminate it because it was a bad deal. And you had people in Congress that didn't want to do it because they had other reasons, maybe bad reasons. They're mostly not there anymore, those people. But it's amazing what's happened. I appreciate that question because it's incredible. I don't think we've ever seen anything like it. $7 trillion, and it's much more than that because, these are places that we know. $7 trillion is unheard of. I never looked at the Biden numbers, but you could go a whole year and it was peanuts. Everybody was leaving. They weren't coming in, they were leaving, and that means jobs are leaving. And so we're not playing games. We're going to make this country greater than ever before. Thank you for that question.
Mr. President, it seems that China's made some...
Let her just do that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We'll
Thanks. For the past few days, we've heard from this administration no pause. Was this idea of doing a pause, did that just come about this morning? Can you tell us exactly what came into consideration for you and your advisors?
For a period of time, I wouldn't say this morning. Over the last few days, I've been thinking about it. I've been dealing with Scott, with Howard, with some other people that are very professional. And I think it probably came together early this morning, fairly early this morning. Just wrote it up. We didn't have the use of... we didn't have access to lawyers, or we just wrote it up from our hearts, right? It was written from the heart.
Let's see what the Asmongoldиans are saying.
But it was written from the heart. It was written
DEI question.
As something that I think was very positive for the world and for us. And we don't want to hurt countries that don't need to be hurt. And they all want to negotiate. The only problem is, you can only do so many at one time. It's like, we want to do it right. We want to get it right. We want to take care of them, but we have to take care of our country. So, but this was something certainly we've been talking about for a period of time. And we decided to pull the trigger today, and we're happy about it. I didn't know it would have that kind of an impact.
He made us losers. Okay, so they're also not necessarily on board, it seems. So that's good.
You're almost, if you keep going, you're going to be back to where it was 4 weeks ago. But it was a sick market 4 weeks ago, because the trade was sick. It was only a question of time. I don't blame the tariffs. I think the tariffs just sort of magnified what was happening. It was sick. Biden allowed these people to get away with murder. Biden allowed China to just take advantage of us. We had like $1 trillion deficit with China, $1 trillion deficit.
How does Asmongold's chat
a matter of time?
Instantly know when I'm watching Asmongold's chat, by the way? Do they just have both of our fucking chats open at the same time? Fuck you, Hassan Pepe Point. It's kind of, it's wild.
And we've revealed it very strongly. Yes, sir, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. So it seems China's made some serious missteps here in these negotiations, and Secretary Bessent said earlier you may have goaded them into a tough position here. I'm wondering, are you in a way putting together a coalition against China in terms of trade here?
No. Well, China, look, they're very capable, and I don't blame China for what happened. I blame the people sitting right at this desk. Right behind this desk or another desk.
I love how much they hate you for having empathy in your beliefs.
I happen to pick the Resolute. But I blame the people sitting behind in this chair, behind this desk, for being stupid, incompetent, or not having courage. This should have been done years ago. This should have been done before Obama, in all fairness. Not only Biden, Obama. It should have been done many years ago. This started with the World Trade Organization, which was owned by China. It was owned and paid for by China. They didn't even have to do things. They considered them a nation that was undeveloped. They said they were a developing nation. Well, we're a developing nation, too, if you think about it. Look at our inner cities. Look at what's happened. I think we're starting from ground zero there, right? So we're a developing nation, too. No, I know it's a lot of people would take heat for saying that, but I blame the people sitting at this desk more than I blame China. If China can get away with what they got away with taking hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars right out of our pocket because our people here were stupid, they were stupid people. Maybe corrupt, I don't know. I don't know how you can be that stupid. How do you get to be president and you're stupid? But they certainly weren't courageous, and they allowed this to happen. And with Japan and with many other countries that took advantage of us. I mean, we had deficits with almost every country. I used to read these things. First term, I'd read them. I'd actually read the agreements. I'd say, how could anybody agree to this stuff? So certainly they were rough, and they were tough, and they were smart, and you can blame them, but I really blame the people that allowed them to do it, because if you could read first grade and you could read these agreements, you'd say, these are terrible deals. I actually used to say, who would allow deals like this to be made for our country? And maybe it's people that didn't care. Maybe it's people that weren't courageous. Maybe it's people that were corrupt. I don't know. But I blame those people more than I blame anybody else.
Mr. President, you've been very specific in saying that you would like the EU to purchase U.S.
There's definitely a lot more discontent, says the dude who told us to inject bleach for Trump can't read at first grade.
You'll be hearing about that, yeah.
There's a lot of discontent seemingly in the Asmongoldian side.
I'll be telling China what that is.
I don't think they are buying whatever the fuck Trump is selling at this moment.
That if they do not agree to a potential nuclear deal, that it would be very dangerous for them. What specifically?
Well, they can't have a nuclear weapon.
Did you mean military action, though, if they don't agree?
Oh, if necessary? Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have a
deadline for these talks?
Yeah, I do.
And
You're talking about with Iran?
Yes.
Yeah, I do.
Do you want something definitive this weekend, or do you see this as the start of a process?
It's a start.
Do you have a timeline?
We have a little time, but we don't have much time.
Who is starting the
because we're not going to let them have a nuclear weapon. And we're going to let them thrive. I want them to thrive. I want Iran to be great. The only thing they can't have is a nuclear weapon. They understand that. You know, the people are so incredible in Iran, and they're so smart. They're very smart people. But, you know, they're in a rough situation, rough regime. But they understand, and the leaders understand. And I'm not asking for much. I don't. They can't have a nuclear weapon, and I've said that. And I was a little bit surprised because when the election was rigged, I figured that get the weapon, because with me they were broke. They were broke. They had no money because of the sanctions. Nobody could buy oil. We did that to Venezuela just recently, and we'll do it to other countries if we have to. I want to see Russia and Ukraine make a deal. They got to make a deal. When schools get blown up and bad things happen, like I'm hearing about, it's no good. I hope we're going to make a deal with Russia and Ukraine. But with Iran, yeah, if it requires military, we're going to have military. Israel will obviously be very much involved in that. He'll be the leader of that. But nobody leads us. We do what we want to do.
When would the talks need to conclude before you might do military?
I can't really be specific, but you know, when you start talks, you know if they're going along well or not. And I would say the conclusion would be when I think they're not going along well. So that's just a feeling.
Mr. President, on the subject of U.S. troops stationed in Europe, do you have any plans to reduce the number of U.S. troops in Europe or in other NATO countries?
Well, good. I mean, it depends. We pay for military over in Europe. You know, we don't get reimbursed by much. South Korea too. So it'll be one of the things we discuss. That's unrelated to trade, but I think we'll make it part of it because it makes sense. Be nice to wrap it all up in one package for each country. You know, it's nice and clean, and we have plenty of law firms. These are great law firms that we signed with, the best. And I think part of the way I'll spend some of the money that we're getting from the law firms, you know, in terms of their legal time.
If you don't understand how Trump thinks about tariffs, you should check out Peter Navarro. Dude, I check out Peter Navarro, don't worry.
Good lawyers representing us, but we want to have good lawyers, and these are the best, considered the best lawyers in the world, right? I mean, considered the best in the world. I don't know. They just went off a little bit.
Mr. President, two questions. On Iran, do you have an update on who will be participating or conducting these conversations? Will Witkoff be there on Saturday for these direct talks? And on China, some economists are saying that right now is technically embargo on China with 125% tariffs. Are you concerned of escalation beyond the trade war with China?
No, I'm not concerned. I think President Xi is a very smart guy, and I think we'll end up making a very good deal for both. But, you know, we've been treated so badly for so many years. Again, we allowed that to happen. We've been treated so badly for so many years. But no, I don't expect that. I think President Xi is one of the very smart people of the world, and I don't think he'd allow that to happen. And we're very powerful. This country is very powerful. Let me tell you, it's far more powerful than people understand.
My favorite advisor,
weaponry that nobody
brilliant
has
guy,
any idea
knows
what it is,
China.
and it is the most powerful weapons in the world that we have. More powerful than anybody, not even close. So nobody's going to do that, but I think that if that's what you're referring to, maybe it's not. But just in terms of basic escalation, which is what you said, no, I think that President Xi is a man who knows exactly what has to be done. He's a very smart man. He loves his country. I know that for a fact. I know him very well. And I think he's going to want to get to a deal. I think that's going to happen. We'll get a phone call at some point, and it'll be off to the races. It'll be a great thing for them. It'll be a great thing for us. It's going to be a great thing for the world and for humanity.
In Saudi Arabia?
At some point, I would. We'll have to see. I mean, we have to get there right now. You know, we got to get there. In the meantime, they're losing 2,500 on average young people every single week. Think of that. 2,500 people a week. It's not even conceivable. We got to get there fast. A couple of more. Yes.
Do you have to increase tariffs on China even more before they come to the table or give you a phone
I
call?
can't imagine it. No, I can't imagine. I don't think so. I don't think I'll have to do it. I don't think we'll have to do it more. We calculated it very carefully. By the way, you know, when you hear 100, a lot of people charge much more than that. Canada charges much more than that to our farmers, our dairy farmers. Many people charge much more than 100 or 125 in this case. But I don't, you know, it's still a significant number. I don't see that again.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, Mr. President. So do you think some of your tariff critics would prefer, you know, to see the United States go through turmoil than to actually see it succeed just because they are your policies?
You mean just leave the tariffs the way they are now and just relax?
He's
right?
just like I think he just loves Xi, and he's willing to make the American small business owners that rely on Chinese manufacturing and the American working class that has benefited from the cheap, accessible, affordable commodities suffer with mass inflation just to get Xi to call him, you know, on a cell phone. He's like, please, Mr. Xi, President Xi, he loves me. I know he loves me. He just doesn't want to call. He's playing hard to get.
I've been in worse positions in my life than making $2 billion a day plus, right? It's
He's just playing hard to get.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Believe it, I will destroy this beautiful economy just to get one phone call from Mr. Xi.
The markets right now are extremely good. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, press. Thank you.
Okay, well, Donald Trump ending that actually far-reaching news conference off the back of the signing of some executive orders.
But
the main
he'll
story
call me
today,
soon.
obviously,
He'll call
tariff.
me, I promise. Believe it, he will call me on my cell phone late night when he needs my love. It's a real hotline bling situation. Let's hear what Peter Navarro has to say.
Trying to negotiate. Walk us through how this decision was made.
Charles, this is one of the greatest days in American economic history we have had. I think we're going to call it the art of the reciprocal.
Chris Paul makes pivotal three-pointer to cut the lead that the opposing team has down to 42. Okay, trust. Look at all that green. Look at all that green, baby. The markets are loving it.
Trade deal. And I'll tell you, all the nervous Nellies on Wall Street who try to undermine us consistently underestimate the power of the president to negotiate. What have we got here? We are at a place now where we have a broad-based 10% global tariff on. Well, we negotiate over the next 90 days.
Bro, they even flipped the Fox business logo green. Oh my God. And the entire background is green. Oh, these people are so funny. Oh my God. I love Regime Press. Regime Press is excellent. Okay. Look at all the green, baby. Look at all the fucking green.
Who have come to us. And the mission, Charles, in these negotiations is to dramatically reduce our trade deficit, level the playing field, get rid of all the tariff differentials, get rid of all the non-tariff barriers.
Yesterday, everyone was like, the stock market is just about the top 10% of wealth. Who gives a fuck if it's all red? You're stupid for caring about it. Today, they're like, oh my God, America's back, baby. America's back. Like it never went away. So what's the take? Is this artificial ups in the market, but it will go down again soon? Yes. I think the faster people understand that, one, money is fake and it's never been more fake than it is right now. And the faster people understand that the markets are not reacting in the appropriate way that they normally would, considering that Donald Trump still very much has caused inflation with the broad 10% tariffs that he slapped on and the 124% tariffs he fucking slapped on to China, alongside the Chinese tariffs on U.S. goods as well, which is, you know, somewhat significant, especially for like soy manufacturing. But all of that is going to lead to incredible instability. The only reason why the markets are rebounding right now is because at least he's not nuking the entire planet. They still have tariffs on raw materials. China is withholding them too. Like nothing is fixed. But there's also this. Reporter asks, would you consider exempting some larger companies that have been hit hard in the markets? Trump, we're going to take a look at it. How will you determine that instinctively? He's going to give some of, oh my God, it's literally happening in the exact same ways that I said it would. What did I tell you? He's going to use the tariffs as a way to get favorable deals from big corporations that will play ball. I told you that he's like, oh, I'm doing broad tariffs, but if you don't want the tariffs, then you come to Papa. You come to Papa. Yeah, Turkification. The Turkification of the American economy.
You can
consider exempting some U.S. companies, maybe some larger companies who have been hit hard in the markets the last few days during this 90 days?
As time goes by, we're going to take a look at it. There are some that have been...
Yeah, I said it was a loyalty pledge. Loyalty pledge. If you come to me and you kiss the ring, if you come to me and kiss the ring, maybe I'll give you respite from the tariffs.
Hard. There are some that, by the nature of the company, get hit a little bit harder, and we'll take a look at that. Yeah. Just instinctively, more than anything else. I mean, you almost can't take a pencil to paper. It's really more of an instinct, I think, than anything else.
The China tariff wiped us out overnight. I'm laid off and my team is dissolved. Holy shit. Oh, I'm sorry, chatter. You know what scene where Putin made all those oligarchs sign a paper or something on camera, something in the mid-2000s? Trump really wanted his own version of that. Oh, it was a labor dispute. You're talking about that labor dispute that took place where Vladimir Putin was like, you're going to listen to the demands that the labor union is making. And then he fucking literally personally was like, I don't see your, what was it? Was it what was the name of the dude? He straight up was like, I do not see your signature on this piece of paper. You will sign now. Deripaska, yeah. Deripaska! I do not see your signature on piece of paper. Except Donald Trump would never do that at the behest of any fucking labor union. He would do the exact opposite. So there's that too. Are dropshippers safe from all this? No, dropshippers are dead. It's done.
So, but another example of this is what we talked about earlier, that Trump wants the US dollar to remain the global reserve currency. He has threatened countries that de-dollarize with tariffs. He threatened 100% tariffs on BRICS countries, which now represent 55% of the world population. And yet at the same time, he says that he wants to reindustrialize. But
yeah, look, Amazon cancels inventory orders from China due to tariffs. Boom. Major hit to drop shipping in general.
In order to reindustrialize the US,
another thing that I told you was going to happen.
The dollar has to come down. It's extremely expensive. Even some major US banks are saying that the US dollar is extremely overvalued. You talked about how the Federal Reserve has significantly raised interest rates in recent years, which has caused many other currencies to depreciate against the dollar. So if Trump wants to reindustrialize, he has to tackle this issue unless he wants iPhones to cost $5,000 to produce. He says he wants to produce this stuff locally, but it's so expensive. He's not even going to be able to export it because it's going to be so uncompetitive internationally because of the very expensive dollar. So to me, this seems to be another major contradiction that Trump, he wants to punish countries that de-dollarize, and he says he wants to reindustrialize, yet he also is engaging in these policies like tariffs that only push the dollar further up. So it seems like something has to break at
Ben Norton is literally living my dream in China right now.
Some point. Do you think that it's possible for this strategy to work for the US to reindustrialize with such an expensive dollar while threatening other countries to de-dollarize and putting on tariffs that keep driving up the dollar? And I'll add one other part of this question. He also has chosen the...
This is M. HUD, by the way. This is what he looks like. Yeah, W. Michael Hudson. Yep, I work with Ben Norton on that. Yeah, chatters. Y'all thought M. HUD was like around our age, you know what I mean? Around my age, but turns out this is what he looks like, actually. He is our age. He just looks like this. It's because he spent so much time in the library building out his brain so that he could be the smartest economist. Wait, I don't know if you're lying. Yes, dude. What do you mean?
The billionaire hedge fund manager, Scott Bessent, to be his treasury secretary. There are 13 billionaires in the Trump administration. These are people who are not going to want to bring down the dollar because that would hurt Wall Street. Because the stronger the dollar gets, the richer they get with all of their U.S. financial assets. So, I mean, what's going to break? What's going to happen here?
Well, there are a number of things you've said. To begin with, there's a great misunderstanding, and that's because money and debt are blind spots in the economic education of that people get in the United States. And Trump follows a sort of neoliberal blind spot in not looking at the industrialization and international finance as a interrelated economic system. The fact is that in theory, the idea is that if only you will lower the dollar's exchange rate, that will make American exports more competitive with European exports and China's exports. That's crazy. What American exports? America's deindustrialized. Let it devalue the currency by 90%. 90%. It'll take 10 or 15 years to recreate the industry that America has outsourced to foreign countries. America doesn't have the production to lower its prices on. It has control of the world oil industry as a center of American diplomacy. It has American agriculture, but it doesn't have industrial exports, cars. It's trying to maintain its idea of industry is information technology. Well, we just saw that go poof with the deep sea Chinese information technology. The problem is that what has deindustrialized the United States and makes it impossible to reindustrialize is the United States is no longer in an era of industrial capitalism. It's finance capitalism. And the aim of the financial companies, whether it's they're making steel companies or auto companies or computer companies, is to increase the price of their stocks. Most financial fortunes in the United States and Europe are not made by earning profits on production. They're made by capital gains in their stock prices. And the capital gains are financed mainly by debt leveraging from banks at low interest rates to buy one stock, or to, if you do make profits, you pay them out as dividends to increase your stock prices. I think I've said on your show before, 92% of the Standard & Poor 500 cash flow profits are paid out as dividends and stock buybacks, not as industrialization. Now, Trump is, you can...
This is a byproduct of the financialization. That's it. Everything's computer, but actually instead of everything's computer, it's everything's bank. Everything's a bank now. We no longer value manufacturing output. Everything's computer bank money. It's all of it. All of it. Everything is bank.
See an example in what's happened with Intel in the United States. The United States wanted to prevent China from getting computer chips, imagining that if the United States blocks computer chips from China, China will say, oh, we give up. We don't know how to produce computer chips. Well, obviously, China's gone way ahead, but Intel has been blocked from selling computer chips to China. And the Intel stock has been plunging because its CEO has said, well, wait a minute, our biggest single market is China. Now that we've lost the Chinese market, our profits are way down. And if we don't make profits, how are we going to get the money to finance research and development? We've got to support our stock by using the few profits that are left for us to make, stock buybacks, and paying out as dividends to support our shareholders. So essentially, the United States has been cutting its own throat its industrial throat with financialization, and the fact that the whole objective of American corporate industry isn't industrial anymore; it's financial. And if you've created a way of making America's comparative advantage in finance, then you've lost your advantage in industry. And can any economy that does not produce industrial exports, does not produce exports or products that other countries want, except maybe liquid natural gas and farm products, can that really dominate the world? If you've outsourced all of your industry, all of your research and development, if you've stopped your infrastructure spending in order to cut taxes on the wealthiest financial classes so that they can make up more money instead of the economy rebuilding its bridges and infrastructure and developing like it used to do, then you're going to have the United States becoming a failed industrial economy, and that's what's happened. So in that,
yep, still have the war industry. Okay, great. Stocks down, so savings are getting crushed. Bond yields surging, so America needs to pay more interest on its debt. Dollar down, so everything the U.S. buys abroad is more expensive on top of the tariffs. Massive tariffs, which are a huge additional tax on Americans, further eating away at their spending power. American companies see surging costs and more difficulty doing business abroad with the retaliatory measures and boycotts. All for what? So Americans can start making socks instead of Bangladeshi workers, so the U.S. government can raise more money to fund an already insanely bloated military-industrial complex? Absolutely senseless. This was the analysis last night. So much winning, Mr. President. We're winning so much. See, but hey, guess what? Yeah, stock market is rebounding big time. So everything is good. This to me, unironically, spells disorder. Like the very fact that Donald Trump threatened to do the nuclear option and then only scaled it back to like, you know, a smaller nuke instead, directed at a smaller nuke instead, directed at China, and people are like, no, everything is fixed now. Everything is fixed, is so fucking stupid. Where things stand, 1 week after Liberation Day, tariffs on China will go to 125% from 104% on Wednesday and from 20% on Tuesday. Tariffs on all the countries except Russia, North Korea, and Belarus will be at 10% for the next 90 days. Tariffs on steel and aluminum are 25%. Tariffs on imported cars are 25%. Canada and Mexico face tariffs of 25% on goods that aren't eligible for USMCA. I don't understand how people are looking at the situation and going, no, this is good. This is actually a good thing, I promise. Let's see what Fox News said, though. Now that we covered this extensively, let's take a look at what Fox News is saying about this beautiful rebounding of the market. Masterful gambit time.
Statement regarding his America First trade plan. As you all know, the president just put out a statement announcing an additional tariff on China. The tariff on China will now go up to 125% because China imprudently decided to retaliate against the United States. And as I said at the podium yesterday, when you punch at the United States of America, President Trump is going to punch back harder. In that same vein, we have had more than 75 countries from around the world reach out to President Trump and his team here at the White House to negotiate better trade.
You said, my dad said it's good and that he believes Trump has a plan but isn't explaining it well. No, here's the thing. Here's the difference between me and your dad. I actually know what Trump's plan is, and I still think it's going to be a failure. Okay? Most of these people that think, oh, no, things are going to get better right now, don't even understand what Trump's plan is in actuality. They're just literally reacting. They're playing catch up and basically repeating whatever Trump is saying, his administration is saying, or whatever they fucking hear on Fox News. And they're wrong. They don't even understand why they're wrong. I understand what Trump's initiative is here, and I've explained it thoroughly over and over again this morning. I'm not going to repeat it one more time, okay? He's just trying to tackle trade deficits and decouple America from its largest trade partner and move manufacturing back here. And part of that is also obviously going to be devaluing the U.S. dollar and trying to force other vassal states that have played ball with the global trade design that America has set up in perpetuity, that exploits the global south and allows American consumers to be the domineering force on the planet with its great purchasing power without actually building any sort of manufacturing any longer, to go back and demand more from these people. Okay? It has virtually nothing to do with tariffs. That's not a real thing. No trade barriers. That's not a real thing either. And no, it's not Donald Trump doing this single-handedly. This is not Donald Trump's decision. This is simply the American. This has been the American goal since Obama, since America realized that China was making major gains in manufacturing. Trump just is the guy who did it, who followed through on it.
Deals for the American worker. We have been overwhelmed with the amount of requests from countries around the world. I'll let the Secretary speak to that. We will continue with the tailor-made negotiations that I spoke about yesterday. In the meantime, there will be a 90-day pause on the reciprocal tariffs as these negotiations are ongoing, and the tariff level will be brought down to a universal 10% tariff. The Secretary here has been a huge part of the President's trade team, of course, and will continue to lead these negotiations moving forward, to look out for the American worker, which is always President Trump's goal. So I'll kick it over to our great Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent.
Thank you. And we saw the successful negotiating strategy that President Trump implemented a week ago today. It has brought more than 75 countries forward to negotiate. It took great courage for him to stay the course until this moment. And what we have ended up with here, as I told everyone a week ago,
this is literally them not staying the course. What do you mean he stayed the course? This is a decision. This is an announcement of not staying the course. I told you that he was just going to look at like any kind of like initiative, that these governments will say and chalk it up as a victory. That's precisely what happened. He's like, look at us, we did it. Major victory here. I'm not backing down from my insane, from the ridiculous moves that I've been making. Yeah, all according to plan.
In this very spot, do not retaliate and you will be rewarded. So every country in the world who wants to come and negotiate, we are willing to hear you. We're going to go down to a 10% baseline tariff for them, and China will be raised to 125 due to their insistence on escalation.
Thank you for doing this. Let me 3 quick things, if I could, just for the sake of clarity, because the market, first of all, Mexico and China, are they part of this 10% universal? Mexico and Canada, are they part of the 10%?
Yes.
Okay. Second, given then that you have the rest of the world essentially calling it, it's not China, is this now just all about China?
Well, it's about bad actors. And what we will see is some of the very early countries are China's neighbors. That we're going to see. I'm seeing Vietnam today. Japan's at the front of the queue. South Korea, India. So we will see. And as I've repeatedly said, and President Trump has been saying it for years, China is the most imbalanced economy in the history of the modern world, and they are the biggest source of the U.S. trade problems.
This is their own design. Okay, I need you to understand something. When they say China is cheating, they are cheating. What they mean is China's manufacturing capabilities and its state-funded enterprise makes it so that it is impossible for other nations to compete with the price points that they to the price points that they fucking manufacture goods around the globe. That's what they're saying. They're saying that China is not operating by the rules that we designed, even though we unironically designed the rules so we could get cheap goods from China. They're beating us on their own on the game that we've designed. We set the rules, and they're beating us now within the structure, within the framework that we created, and we don't like that. It's fucked up.
And indeed, they are problems for the rest of the world, because what we've seen is that as the U.S. announced the tariff wall last week, many of those goods have already started flooding into Europe.
So as you see it now, this trade war is China versus the rest of the world?
Well, I'm not calling it a trade war, but I'm saying that China has escalated, and President Trump responded very courageously to that, and we are going to work on a solution with our trading partners.
Excuse me, Raquel, if I could just add to what the Secretary said. Many of you in the media clearly missed the art of the deal. You clearly failed to see what President Trump is doing here. You tried to say that the rest of the world would be moved closer to China when in fact we've seen the opposite effect. The entire world is calling the United States of America, not China, because they need our markets, they need our consumers, and they need this president in the Oval Office to talk to them. And that's exactly why more than 75 countries have called, because the United States of America is the best place in the world to do business. And as the president has shown great courage, as the Secretary has said, in choosing to retaliate against China even higher. Elena, go ahead.
It feels like a reversal here. I mean, just these went into effect less than 15 hours ago, these tariffs. Why the pause now? What led to that?
No, again, President Trump created maximum negotiating leverage for himself, and which tariffs went into effect 15 hours ago. The ones that we have lowered went into effect a week ago. They were announced a week ago, and we have just been overwhelmed by the response from mostly our allies who want to come and negotiate in good faith. So we are expecting them to come with their best deal. As I said a week ago today, don't retaliate, hold your ground, let's see what happens. And China, they kept escalating and escalating, and now they have 125% tariffs that will be effective immediately.
Mr. Secretary,
go ahead.
Mr. Secretary, thanks so much for doing this. The 90-day pause on the reciprocal tariffs, is that because of the whiplash that we've been seeing across the financial markets? How much was, what we saw in the stock markets, a part of this decision?
No, it's because because of the large number of inbounds. We've had more than 75 countries contact us, and I imagine after today there will be more. So it is just a processing problem. Each one of these solutions is going to be bespoke. It is going to take some time, and President Trump wants to be personally involved. So that's why we're getting the 90-day pause. Look, it's all the president's decision, and the president had a level in mind to raise the China tariffs, and then he had the 3-month pause in mind, and we were discussing the exact wording. Sorry? Of course.
It's the president's decision.
It's the president's decision. It was the president's decision to wait until today. And again, as I've said in the past, no one creates leverage for himself like President Trump.
All of our allies called us, except the EU also implemented a 25% counter tariff, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know what he means by that. He claimed that everybody backed away, but the EU did.
Mr. Secretary, wide night deadline to trade barriers. How does it work with that?
Well, these are trade negotiations, but if countries want to come and offer other things, I talked about yesterday that we are thinking about a big LNG project in Alaska that South Korea, Japan, Taiwan are interested in financing and taking a substantial portion of the offtake. But again, in essence, that is trade because it will decrease the trade deficit that we have with those countries. So everything's on the table.
Are they still going to have this 90-day pause? Because you were saying that there will be a tariff of 10% for others. So what happened to those who just had a 10%?
Yeah, that's going to remain.
And do you call this an embargo to China?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by the word embargo.
100.
It is an embargo. Like 100 and fucking. The difference between 84% tariffs versus 104% tariffs versus 124% tariffs is literally a trade embargo. It's been a trade embargo. You don't want to call it that, but that is what it is. What the fuck do you mean? Oh, what's an embargo? I don't know what that is.
Well, it's China's decision that we have the deficit with them. They sell us almost 5 times what we sell them. So again, I think it's an own goal by China. It signals that President Trump cares about trade and that we want to negotiate in good faith. And as I said, each one of these is going to be a separate, bespoke negotiation. So we are confident that having seen the other side of where this could go, and it was like I said last week, the market didn't understand. Those were maximum levels. The countries can think about those levels as they come to us to bring down their tariffs, their non-tariff trade barriers. We're going to discuss currency manipulation, subsidy of labor and industry.
Told you. That's it. China is cheating because they subsidize their industry. They're cheating. Their products are too good and too affordable. Understand that that is what they mean when they say China is cheating. Every person predisposed with political economy will openly say this without even recognizing the irony, because their worldview is so dogmatic Their worldview is so hyper-capitalist that they're like, what do you mean? What? What do you mean state-owned enterprise? Like, no, you can't do that. Yeah. And at no step of the way does anyone go, wait a minute, why don't we do that? And it's not like China is acting as though they're not doing this. They're like, yeah, we're a transitional socialist state. The state owns all of our enterprise. The state owns virtually everything. Sure, it still operates within this private sector where there's a market, yada yada yada. But ultimately, the state has desires or has initiatives in terms of global trade that they will that the private sector will follow through on.
Secretary, as far as you, will the pause also apply to the sector?
What you're doing here, so the market is reacting crazily, right?
I haven't seen it.
Do you think that this move,
what?
Do you think the markets have tanked, right? You know, there's been a lot of volatility in the market, not just for stock markets, but also...
Well, I think what we've seen, I think the willingness by more than 75 countries to come and negotiate, I think now the market understands that everything they saw last Wednesday was a ceiling, and now we have a 10% temporary floor, and I think the market, my 35 years in the market, I always wanted certainty, so I think we've got more certainty.
But cool, 5 hours later, he announces...
Because, again, as I said, we've given 90 days, and the only certainty we can provide is that the U.S. is going to negotiate in good faith, and we assume that our allies will, in terms of certainty, we will see what China does. But what I'm certain of is that what China is doing will affect their economy much more than it will ours, because they have an export-driven, flood the world with cheap export models, and the rest of the world now understands, because when we put up our tariff wall, those exports were already flowing to the rest of the G7 and to the global south. I have nothing that says that, and we actually had quite a good 10-year auction today, and all this was, again, this was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and this was his strategy all along, and that, you might even say that he goaded China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors, and we are willing to cooperate with our allies and with our trading partners who did not retaliate. It wasn't a hard message. Don't retaliate. Things will turn out well.
What do you mean? There's still tariffs. How can America claim to be the good actor in this situation? Wow, I can't believe China. I can't believe China retaliated to our tariffs. They showed the world that they are bad actors. Don't you understand? You're not supposed to do that.
Political articles saying that the countries weren't getting calls back.
These negotiations with these 75 countries, how long will that take? Will it be a matter of weeks? Will it be a matter of months? Do you expect financial markets to be stable during that time period?
Well, we've started with a 90-day pause, and we will see if more countries turn up, what will happen. But we have a meeting with Vietnam today, and we have one of the largest trade deficits with them. So I'm hoping it will move in a good direction. I was at the Japanese ambassador's house last night for the Cherry Blossom Festival, which was quite festive, and he and I had a good chat. They are going to send a deal team over. So we'll see. These are complicated negotiations. These are imbalances that have taken decades to create. But I think having seen the maximum level that Donald Trump is willing to go to, President Trump has created this negotiating leverage.
Excuse me, everybody. Excuse me. The secretary is obviously a very busy man. As he has said, he's had more than 75 countries that the trade team has to respond to. I'd just like to end with this. For decades, Republicans and Democrats have said that these unfair trade practices are ripping off the American people, are ripping off our country, but nobody has ever done done anything to address it. We finally have a president here at the White House who is playing the long game, who is doing what is right for the American worker and our industries here at home, and he has put together a fantastic team in Secretary Bessent, Secretary Lustnick, the entire trade team who will be focusing on negotiating these good deals to put the American workers first, and we're going to get to work to do that. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno.
Amazing.
Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday.
Now, just a few minutes before we came on air, a sudden social media post from Donald Trump turned all his tariff plans upside down again. Based on the lack of respect China has shown to the world markets, he declared, "I am hereby raising the tariff charged by the United States of America to 125%. As for the countries which he said had not, at my strong suggestion, retaliated in any way, shape or form, I've authorized a 90-day pause and a substantially lowered reciprocal tariff during this period of 10%. It took several questions to the White House press secretary to establish that this was a universal flat rate and not on top of the existing 10% already imposed. That's all perfectly clear then, is it? Well, in our first report tonight, here's our Washington correspondent, Siobhan Kennedy.
I know what the hell I'm doing. I know what I'm doing, and you know what I'm doing too.
Last night, President Trump claimed he knew what he was doing as he unleashed a barrage of reciprocal tariffs on dozens of countries around the world.
Thank you. The president has just announced a 90-day pause.
But in the last hour, yet more chaos, as the president abruptly announced on social media a 90-day pause. The stock market surged as investors took heart and screens quickly turned green. But exempt from the tariff pause was China, on which Trump hiked levies for the second time in 24 hours, this time to 125%. Beijing had already retaliated with an increased 84% levy on US goods, its finance minister earlier insisting Beijing would not back down. We will continue to take resolute and strong measures to safeguard our legitimate rights and interests, he said. There was also retaliation from Europe that targeted iconic products like Harley-Davidson motorbikes with a new 25% duty that will also hit American chickens, soybeans and ice cream. The incoming German chancellor was equally resolute. We do not yet know what direction the international situation will head, he said, but that's why our message today is all the more clear. We want to and we will help shape the shift in the world for Germany. That doesn't sound like countries cozying up to Donald Trump, as he claimed last night.
I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass. They are dying to make a deal. Please, please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything. I'll do anything, sir.
With a global trade war underway, Trump's Treasury Secretary spoke at a bankers' conference this morning, perhaps to try and calm jittery nerves, though he didn't sound particularly convinced himself.
I can tell you that there is a little uncertainty, but that in general,
just a little bit,
the companies that I've spoken to, the people who have come, the CEOs who have come into Treasury, tell me that the economy is very solid. We got some very good jobs numbers last Friday. So, I think that we are in pretty good shape.
This will be the largest tax increase for the American people.
But that wasn't the message in Congress today, during a second grilling of Trump's trade official.
The numbers speak for themselves. $3,800 higher prices for American consumers, 900 laid off U.S. auto workers, trillions in lost retirement savings, which would be the biggest tax increase in our history.
Perhaps acknowledging that pain, at least the chaos his policies are causing in global markets, Donald Trump has now called a pause, a welcome reprieve from the turmoil he's created.
Siobhan Kennedy, well, was today's climb down the result of market movements overnight as confidence in the US economy declined and investors rushed to offload government debt? With me now is our economics correspondent, Helia Ebrahimi. So let's start with UK debts. What had been happening?
Well, look, the whole thing is quite complicated because
we've seen in the last half an hour that US stock markets, as Siobhan was saying, have all bounced higher. You know, you've got the Dow Jones. I'm going to start there. I'm going to go for the good news first and then get to the bad news, Krish. Dow Jones up 6%. NASDAQ, that's where all the US big tech companies are. They've shot up even higher, up 9%. All those hard-hit American companies like Nike, Apple, you know, Delta Airlines, which had been the main casualties of this tariff war, are seeing double-digit share growth at the moment. And the conclusion of this turmoil is that I think this is kind of, you know, it's that famous saying from Bill Clinton's advisor that if the reincarnation exists, I want to come back as the bond market because that's what really has power. And I'm going to show you up until an hour ago, there was a fear that not just prices were nosediving in shares, but also credit. This is the US Treasury market, 30-year debt. That should be the safest of safe places to be. And you can see just as tariffs begin, that's the white line, you see it shoot up to 5%. Now, that is really bad news for the administration and traders and market analysts all talking about what's the circuit breaker, what's going to stop this.
And that was the opposite of what they intended.
That's the opposite. And it's very strange as well to see bonds go up, government debt go up. You know, this means there is a loss of confidence in not just shares, but actually the USA. And you were asking a moment ago about what does this mean for UK debt? Well, we're going to bring up another chart for you because, of course, this spreads not just across the US and to other corporate bonds, but also to the UK. You can see the UK debt price, which was already quite spicy, Krish, has gone up to 5.64%. And that is all because people are losing confidence.
Is that trust territory?
Well, the similarities with trust, that is away from trust. You know, we're still away from trust in terms of the change in gilt yield. So that's the highest level.
I do love that Liz Truss was such a spectacular failure that they literally invoke her name to basically explain a phenomena of a political figure crashing and burning in spectacular fashion in an incredibly short period of time. Like she has become the benchmark for political failure.
Since 1998, but it's not the biggest move which we saw with Truss. The similarities with Truss, Krish, is that we've seen some chaos in the market. You know, prices going up, going down, crashing all about, and moving critically to the credit market. And you've got big leveraged positions, which means that prices are moving very quickly, very violently. Things like oil going down, things like the dollar going down, things like US Treasuries going down. When that happens, Krish, policymakers worry not just about prices, not just about recession, but does the whole market system break somewhere? And it is that kind of question about, is there enough liquidity? Is something going to break along the way that I think has stayed his hand?
And this is not over, is it?
Well, no, it's definitely not over. It's a reprieve. As Siobhan was saying, it's staying his hand for 90 days. But remember, China, which is the world's second biggest economy, still has tariffs. Not only still has tariffs, but he's increased the tariffs. Trump's increased the tariffs to 125%. Now, that is still going to have ramifications. And even when you look at the rest of the world, he's only given a 90-day pause. So companies, markets, fund managers, policymakers, they're still not clear where the policy is going to land. And that is going to lead to a whole bunch of volatility. If we have a look at my last graphic that I'm going to show you, this is the VIX. People call it the fear index. And you can see how it shot up on tariff day. That means people don't really know what's going to happen. And when people don't know, then things become a lot riskier. And that's when policymakers...
Because it's no longer clear what the purpose of his tariffs are now, is it? Yeah. It might not be about rebalancing the world economy after all.
Yeah, is it a negotiating tool, or, you know, is he just trying to bully everybody?
Thanks, Javier. Matt?
Well, I think we should be able to speak to Siobhan Kelly now. Siobhan, tell us what the very latest is that you've heard from the White House.
Well, Matt, just first of all, what a roller coaster of a day, of a week this has been, having insisted pretty much on a daily basis that he was not for budging, he would not change his policy. That is exactly what Donald Trump has abruptly and suddenly done today with this pause that he's put in place. He said that he's done it because 75 countries, he said on his Truth Social platform, have called representatives of the United States, his Department of Commerce and others, and begged, as he would see it, to make a deal. Of course, the one country that has not done that is China. And he is claiming today that it was China's lack of respect that it has shown to the world markets that has made him make this pause. Of course, there's been chaos in the world markets. He seems to be blaming China for that, and he's raised the levy instead on China to 125%. That was on his Truth Social platform. In the last few moments, we have heard from the White House. His press secretary has come out onto the lawn there with his Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. Now, Caroline Levitt has said many of you in the media clearly missed the art of the deal. She said the entire world is calling.
So stupid. We are so dumb.
The United States, not China, because they need our markets. She spoke alongside, as I said there, the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. Let's hear what he had to say now.
China is the most imbalanced economy in the history of the modern world, and they are the biggest source of the U.S. trade problems. And indeed, they are problems for the rest of the world, because what we've seen is that as the U.S. announced a tariff wall last week, many of those goods have already started flooding into Europe.
So as you see it now, this trade war is China versus the rest of the world?
Well, I'm not calling it a trade war, but I'm saying that China has escalated, and President Trump responded very courageously to that, and we are going to work on a solution with our trading partners.
Excuse me.
Well, the markets, we've seen them turn green. There is some relief here. But remember, this is only a 90-day pause to give some time for those negotiations and for some deals to perhaps kick in. Doesn't mean they necessarily will. And remember, he is still implementing a 10% tariff. So chaos will still ensue, I think, and prices still stand to go up. So this is a temporary reprieve, but I don't think everybody here, certainly ordinary Americans, will not be breathing a sigh of relief for too long.
Siobhan, thanks very much indeed. Well, Wendy Cutler is a former diplomat who spent years negotiating trade agreements between the US and countries across Asia. She's now at the Asia Society Policy Institute in Washington, D.C., and joins me here on the roof. It's good to see you on such an extraordinary day. You must be feeling a bit dizzy, rather like us. Did Donald Trump blink?
Clearly, I think the pause shows that the administration was getting a bit nervous about.
Dude, everyone keeps talking about the $1 billion rug pull, and it's really funny because guess what? What are you going to do about it? You think the SEC under the Trump command is going to actually investigate this matter and find wrongdoing and punish those who very clearly engaged in insider trading? Like, Donald Trump did this for the crypto markets, and now he's doing it for the market. It's untouchable. Billionaires have never had it as good as they do in this very moment. This is part of the reason why there is no business plot happening against Donald Trump. That's it. What is this? The Trump administration is reportedly planning to kill a $400 million grant from the Biden admin that would boost steel manufacturing in America's Rust Belt, including J.D. Vance's hometown of Middleton, Ohio. Nice. Why? I don't know. TLDR, Washington correspondent for CNBC, the new U.S. tariff rate against our two largest trading partners is either 10%, 25%, or 35%. And so far, no one I've reached out to at the White House has been able to tell me which. Thank you for the pause, Donald. Okay, dude. Don't send me fucking autism capital or whatever.
Series of executive.
He's doing big money moves, dude. He's doing things that you can't even understand.
The economic fallout of these tariffs. So this 90-day pause, while applying to most countries but not China, is a welcome development.
So is it people like Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, who's a very rich man in his own right and credited for having a big financial brain, and the other titans of Wall Street who rang up Donald Trump over recent days and says, lay off, you got to be kidding?
Well, I'm sure they played a role, but one thing we've learned about...
Yeah, Jamie Dimon made the boss call, and Trump was like, sorry, Mr. Dimon, I apologize. I'll fix it. When you ruin global trade because you're bored, but then Jamie Dimon makes a boss call and you go, all right, my bad, bro. Shit.
This president, he has his own mind and makes his own decisions based on his own considerations.
Now, what about China? I mean, 125% tariff on China, that's unprecedented, isn't it?
It's unprecedented, and frankly, it ends trade between the two countries. Right. China has already responded with higher tariffs, and I think
this, by the way, is precisely why I said like 104%, 124% doesn't fucking matter. It's effectively a trade embargo.
That what's now going to happen is both sides have exhausted their tariff application, so now they may look elsewhere. To other tools and other weapons they can use against each other, and that concerns me.
And who is this more damaging for, China or the US?
I think it depends who you ask.
But what do you think, as someone who's dealt with both sides?
I think both sides are going to feel pain from this. But given China's relatively weak economy, I think the pain will be greater on them. But I also think that the Chinese are in it for the long term. I think that they can endure, and Xi Jinping will do what he needs to do to help them weather through this storm.
They have a higher pain threshold than American society, presumably.
Yes, yeah.
And I mean, to what extent is this about politics and not really about trade?
Look, it's hard to distinguish both of them. I think this started as a genuine trade dispute. I think now it's getting into politics, but it's also getting into personalities of people.
China has a stronger economy, better capabilities in manufacturing, the capacity to also boost domestic trade in times of need, secondary markets that they've set up so that if this uncertainty becomes a reality, where America severs ties with China, that they can at least like restructure their outflowing exports into other places. And yet, for some weird reason, they're like, nah, China is weak as fuck. Bro, my goddamn Bilibili accounts are popping, dude. American blogger watches Hassan's speed tour. 256,000. 922,000. What the hell's going on, dude? Hassan Lemon Brother? What does that mean? Bro already moved on from us, GG. It means you're jealous. Hassan Lemon Brother. Trump's rednecks envy the Iron Fist of the University of Tokyo, but they don't know what is behind it. Wait, what is that even? Brother Tiao Mei, I looked at Bilibili and I didn't expect there to be so many Chinese, so many fans of China. I searched for XC Hasanabi speed and I couldn't stop laughing when I saw my good brother's perverted behavior. Yeah, let me tell you something, okay? When I'm posting just for China. American blogger Hasanabi, watching Speed's China trip made me envious and jealous. I want to go to China. They call iShow Speed hyperthyroidism, brother. Brother hyperthyroidism, by the way. Yeah, I don't even know y'all, bro. Y'all are dead to me. Y'all are so dead to me. All of you American watchers, I've found a new market, dude. What the hell is this, Lemon Brother? Oh my God. What is this even? What does this even mean? What does Lemon Brother mean? Like that I'm jealous? What is hyperthyroidism? I think they mean like he's ADHD.
Well, and how they negotiate. And let's just say both China and the U.S. right now, neither is blinking and both are escalating.
The Trump administration has repeatedly said, as have other administrations, that China has used unfair trade practices.
Asmongold? There's Asmongold heads in China? Chinese English. Asmongold TV calling women household items on Facebook is now allowed. Yeah, he don't got no motion in the Chinese markets in the same way that I do, okay? You see that? He doesn't have motion in the Chinese markets. That's why I'm leaving you guys behind. I'm leaving you guys behind. Marvel Confrontation characters versus the Marvel Avengers game characters. That one got a lot of play. Wait, what? It's actually a racist comment. Hyperthyroidism is extremely prevalent in black communities. Seeing the other racism he's faced in China, I wouldn't be surprised. You think random Chinese netizens are calling him hyperthyroidism because they know that it's extremely prevalent in the black community? Are you fucking insane? No, it's because I suspect that Speed opens up his eyes real wide sometimes, and I think that's what they're referencing. Like he has high energy, and probably because of his reactions in general. I doubt that it's because they know that and are that's a stretch, I think. Or it's probably a mistranslation. Nah. All right. Let's keep going.
Stealing intellectual property rights, etc. We know the score. Do they have a point, and will this redress some of that, do you think, in the future?
Hassan, you're underestimating races that use sickle cell as a slur. Dog. We're talking about Chinese people. They don't know enough about black culture or black people in general to know, like, well thought out, deep lore racism memes. That's my point.
Well, clearly there are valid concerns about not only the openness of the Chinese market, but how can you compete against Chinese companies that are receiving subsidies and all types of financial assistance and assurances from their government? So these issues.
Jiakong J translates to hyperactive bro in English. It's a Chinese internet nickname for IShowSpeed, reflecting his energetic personality. Jiakong means hyperthyroidism, but is slang for hyperactive, and Jia means brother or bro. There you go. It's somewhat of a mistranslation. What? I don't think it's because of hyperthyroidism implying that you have bulging eyes. I don't even think it's that. I think it's just that he's hyperactive. Why do Americans try to find racism in anything? The cotton bouquet wasn't racist. Ordering KFC via drone delivery is not racist. And hyperthyroidism refers to his energy because the first meme that blew up of him shouting. Your community got more woke than you? My community is always more woke than me. I yell half the time I'm in here yelling at the people who are more woke than me.
Issues need to be addressed.
And those countries like Indonesia and Vietnam or Cambodia, which were hit with massive tariffs, partly because they were doing some of China's business and then selling it to the US, presumably they live another day, don't they? Or another 90 days.
Yes, but during these 90 days, they are going to be pressured to take a number of steps, including reining in Chinese investment and Chinese trade that's moving through their borders.
And from your experience of dealing with trade issues, do you think this is a lasting reprieve? I mean, what's going to happen after 90 days? Are we back to where we were on Wednesday? I guess you have to be a psychologist more than an economist, right?
90 days right now in this world seems like a long time. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed for our negotiators that they can find some solutions with countries, particularly in Asia.
And just briefly, we know that the European Union was planning, a very calibrated response of their own tariffs against the US that hadn't yet kicked in. Presumably, they're part of that reprieve, aren't they?
The way I read it, they are, even though they just announced today some tariffs in response to earlier tariff measures from the Trump administration. So I think they're also given the reprieve. And again, I think the EU and the US can use that time to negotiate.
Wendy Cutler, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Well, also today, Canada has confirmed that it will impose a 25% retaliatory tariff on certain vehicle imports from the United States. A short time ago, Prime Minister Mark Carney hit out at Mr. Trump, accusing him of rupturing the global economy. Listen.
We've seen the impact of this chaos. Volatility in global financial markets, retirement savings being put at risk. And here in Canada, President Trump's tariffs are threatening Canadian labor and Canadian business. They're putting people's livelihoods in jeopardy.
And I think we should...
I love you. This is just me, but you definitely got rose-colored glasses for China law. I know for a fact you've seen the videos of people giving Speed KFC and that girl straight, saying she's an N-word killer. Let's not act like it's not a major anti-blackness there and the Chinese people are babies. They don't know what they're talking about. No, I literally covered all that here. What are you talking about? I'm not saying that there's no racism in China. What the fuck? I'm saying that that's basic levels of racism, okay? That's just like basic ass, what you see is what you get, clear-cut racism. The national nickname for Speed being hyperthyroidism, brother, is probably not some deep lore racist shit, and more so just that he is hyperactive. Jesus fucking Christ. Also, literally everywhere IShowSpeed has gone, there's been insane amounts of racism. That's just the reality of being black, unfortunately, in an otherwise white supremacist world. Like, did you guys not see the way he was treated in like fucking Poland and shit? Yeah, anti-black racism is a universal principle at this point. I didn't say that they were I never said that like IShowSpeed has experienced zero racism. I'm simply saying the most common way of referring to him is not like some inside baseball national super racist meme, most likely.
That we don't really know whether that 25% retaliatory tariff from Canada still applies. Now, joining me here is Mark DePlacido.
Also, China literally likes Speed more than many of the other countries that he's visited. Like, probably likes him the most. Not due to the color of his skin or whatever, but because he is an incredibly successful, incredibly popular American content creator who is cutting through who's cutting through all of the noise and all of the anti-China propaganda and showing his audience of very young people that China is not the backwards peasant nation, but instead a nation that has actually surpassed the United States in living standards in many instances, especially in the tier 1 cities. Okay, that's it. They fucking love him.
Policy advisor for the.
Damn, this guy's good.